Okay, we're good to go.
Okay.
Whenever you are. I mean, in
Hang
6:30.
on. I have somebody at the front door. Hold on.
We have 2 whole minutes.
Oh, sorry. No, she has to stay out there. Sorry, I got a council meeting. Okay.
So we're missing Chantel and David, right?
Right. How you doing, Zach? I see you got to go home. That's good.
Yes, I did.
There's David.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you, Zach. We haven't seen you in council too often. So, is it your presentation? Did you have authorship in the presentation for tonight's work session?
Yes, I do. It was a team effort, but spent quite a bit of time prepping the slides for tonight. So,
Part of this.
Yeah, and I just sent it out to all of you if you had a chance to look at it. I know it was rather short notice, but wanted you to have the ability to print out a hard copy or view it on your computer.
All right. It appears to be 6:30, so I will call the November 17th, 2020 Oxford City Council work session to order. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bracken.
Here.
Mr. Ellerby.
Here.
Mr. Prithridge.
Here.
Mr. Snavely.
I'm here.
Ms. Southard.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Snavely, second by Councilor Southard. And I will turn this over to,
You're gonna have to have a vote on that.
oh,
Sorry.
that's all right. Thanks for keeping me honest. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll to approve the agenda?
Mr. Ellerby.
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge.
Yes.
Mr. Snavely.
Yes.
Ms. Southard.
Yes.
Mr. Bracken.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, now I will turn it over to Assistant City Manager Green and Mr. Perry to talk about updating the comprehensive plan.
Yes, good evening. So Sam and I are going to share this presentation together and just kind of present to you kind of what we're thinking for a comprehensive plan update. And I want to begin by saying thank you to Zach Moore, who really made this a very nice presentation. So thank you, Zach, for all your time and effort in helping us pull this together. So our goal tonight is to present to you our idea for updating the comprehensive plan and how we think it can work. I will be kind of upfront and say our initial concept is that we do this as a staff-led initiative and bringing in subject matter experts as needed and working to update certain chapters and things like that. But we also have allowed for completely hiring out with a consultant if you would prefer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam and we'll just kind of go back and forth on this together.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, we're excited to bring this to you tonight. And this is something that Jessica and Zach and I are all have all collaborated on. And so we've got about a 20-minute presentation we'd like to go through. And we'd like to get all the way through that. But if there's something that we're leaving you behind on, feel free to interrupt. So just to start things off, we do have in the city manager's budget a line item for $50,000 just as a placeholder. But our idea here is to break this apart into different elements and steps. And so to kind of get that conversation started, we wanted to just show you what can happen in the amount of time that's transpired in the past couple of decades with land use change. Then how do we want that change to, how do we want to direct that change? And so traditionally comp plans have been focused on land use, transportation, those kinds of things. But based on council feedback and changes that we're seeing around us and in society, there could be other things that we can do. So this slide shows you on the left is an example of some plans that we have had on the books for a long time. The 2008 comp plan is namely the one that we have heard that there's a desire to update. And as staff, we know that there are some things that need to be updated on that as well. And on the right are just kind of a listing of the elements or chapters that have been within that plan. And at the bottom right are some of the more recent things that we've done. And so this just kind of gives you an overall look at all of the long-range plans and concepts that some of the terms could change. So just a quick overview. Some of the more recent things we've been doing that I've been highly interested in doing the past couple years is to focus in on certain neighborhoods, certain areas that might need some more attention. Unfortunately, we didn't do that this year with Charrette because of COVID. But we want to get that going again next year if we can. So in 2018 and 2019, we did do a couple design charrettes on a couple areas in town. That was a lot of fun and got some new ideas going that I think was helpful for the community to feel involved in land use planning. So that's something that we would like to continue that we think would go well to update our comprehensive plans and help the community know what we're looking for.
So I'll take it over from here. But looking ahead, we recognize that we need to do more citizen feedback and engagement. Sam's been doing great with the design charrettes, but we really should be doing a broader lens and also using a variety of tools so that multiple citizens can have a voice regardless of their situation. So that might be surveys or postcards or online or in person, like really trying to use a variety of tools and hear from numerous voices. And then also seeking input on more than just land use, but on a multitude of topics, which could include social justice, climate, housing, but also land use and multimodal. And the goal is to kind of merge these together into a guiding document for our city. Next slide, Sam, please. And then for me, something I'm really excited about would be to make this a working document that really guides our budget decision making, and it's more specific where it has cost estimates. We share with the public what we're doing with graphics and visuals, that council needs regular reports. So I really would like to commit to you that we'll be sharing with you hopefully twice a year metrics toward the goals that we've established. And then something else that I'm pretty passionate about is keeping it relevant. So I'd like to recommend that annually we go out with a citizen survey and get feedback. And this might just be kind of a light touch base. And then every 5 years, we do a larger outreach that really makes sure that our goals are still on point and match the community's vision, and that we're still on that same trajectory with our citizens. Next slide. Oh, and then this is something I just have fallen in love with, the visuals. And this is one example of a very, very nice report that another city has done. And this would be my dream. I'm not going to say that we're going to get there right away, but Sam, if you'll hit the arrow or the next slide a couple of times, my arrow should pop up. So what they've done is they show targets, like their target for carbon emission is 0 by the year 2035. And then they report that, last year they were at 40 metric tons. And that's okay because they're just showing the progress of where they are and what they're committed to. And then I like this next one too, where they are committing to trying to be a 20-minute city where they can kind of commute anywhere in their city in 20 minutes, but it's under development. They don't have an update this year, and that's fine, but they have a heavy use of visuals, graphics, and a light text to kind of help their residents and their council know what's going on. So this would be my dream vision of what a report would look like. Next slide. And then for us, this is what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is like who's in the driver's seat on this plan. And so what we are recommending would be a staff-led approach where Sam and I and our teams work together to try to lead this effort. And we would work to get metrics and update them, and as needed, update chapters. I think the pros is that we would have a large amount of control over what our plan looks like, and we would keep that cost under control. The cons are that it'll take our time, and we have to acknowledge that time, and that'll kind of use our resources in that way. And then the second option is to do a consultant-led from start to finish. This is what our city has done in the past. It is definitely less burden on staff, and there's outside expertise, and the cons would be the cost and then perhaps less direct control over what your end result looks like. The next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to, do I take this one, Sam, or is this you? I think this is me. And then for this, it would be like, what does it look like when we're done? So it would be a mixture of a printed document that might just be the, what I call the highlights reel. And then for people who want to dig deep and for our ongoing reporting, we'll have an online version, which you can see here as an example from Plan Hamilton. And so our goal is to have kind of a hybrid approach where if you want the really light level version that's printed, you can look at that. Maybe the high level website is just the highlights reel, but then for those who like to dig deep, there's option in both print and online versions for them as well. Now I'm turning it back over to Sam. There we go.
Thank you again. So this is some of the framework that Zach has really helped with here, is to help us understand what's a good approach to making sure that we inform citizens what's going on. And so that is where we kind of the three-step process is to inform, educate, inspire, plan, that step, and get into a situation where we're letting citizens know what we've heard and summarizing it, reporting back and saying, is this accurate? And then moving forward with those steps in plan development, some of which we will need help with from consultants all through the process. I have gotten some feedback from department heads. We do have a high degree of service excellence, as Doug talks about quite a bit with our departments. And there have been, obviously a housing study has been done. We're about to publish that here in the next few weeks. We have census data. There have obviously been a lot of land use changes, a lot of changes in our community. We want to be able to summarize that for the community, talk about where we are at with our departmental goals, their long-range planning, what they're doing in their operations, and kind of give an update to everyone before we continue moving forward. And through that process, we believe that will help citizens inform us what those values are, that vision and value, and that may be through various task force and committees as you've suggested. Much of that could be done by staff to kind of set the table for those discussions. Some of that we'll obviously need help with for collecting the feedback from consultants through different innovative ways that weren't available in 2008. And then that will lead us to the plan development. And we would like to do this on a very spread out time schedule because we don't know what our workload is going to be, as 2020 has been, of course, and just to get more ownership of that. So one thing we would like to do differently with the update is to incorporate more graphics and less text, just to help the community better get an understanding what our vision is. And this would be the land use portion of the comp plan update. Whether we call that growth and development or urban design, it's not important at this point. This is actually an excerpt that Zach found from Bowling Green, that they did incorporate a lot of graphics, and that's something that obviously our design charrettes have started to do as well. So what we're calling it at this point is a community strategic plan, and that name could change, but the idea that Jessica and I have is to kind of divide and conquer this, which is to not just have the comprehensive plan sit by itself, but to make sure that we're including our shorter term operational goals and needs within that and measuring those and reporting back as part of one overall process where there will be short-term goals and long-term goals, just to help the community understand that there are things that can be solved shorter term and there are things that need to be budgeted for and spread out. And so this is what we're calling it at this point. Our proposal is to divide it up this way, whereas the more traditional things on the right would be done under the terms growth and development, and then the shorter term things that I think you've been interested in, that we have tried to help with through whether it's the retreats or listening to you on what your goals are, more of the operations and messaging and communication or the relations side of things. And there could be different elements that are broken out within those. So the current elements on the next slide just shows you what we currently have, and then the more recent things are at the bottom, which those could be merged and consolidated just to help with communication with the public. So this is just an example of how we could do some of those mergers. And obviously there's been an interest in doing some new things with climate, with community safety, with Black Lives Matter, town and gun relations. Obviously we could rename that. So this would be the more the operational, shorter term kinds of things. Some could be longer term. And the next slide shows more of the traditional aspects of comprehensive planning, which we could consolidate to help with communications and just letting people know that, yes, that's part of a goal we already have. Housing being one of those shorter term things that we could get to right away because we have new data. And so I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
So what I want to do is kind of take a minute and show an example of what maybe a new chapter development might look like. And so I'm using the police and social services, public action to kind of show what a new chapter development could be. And so I've named it Community Safety and Wellness. And then my proposal would be like in the first quarter. This is a baby tangent, but the first quarter would be, we would do a police community survey. We would partner with a coalition for a healthy community. We just learned they have a very large grant and they're getting ready to do a community needs and resources assessment, which is excellent. And I think sometimes the stars just align where they need to be. And then we would have this recent housing assessment. And then together, with the Coalition for a Healthy Community, we would do a lot of community member focus groups and work with contributors and get just lots of information together. And we would spend the first part of next year doing that. Then the third quarter would be to really refine the goals and draft recommendations. Look at the data we found, look at the resources we have, define the gaps, create goals, and then go back to the stakeholders to be like, are we on the same page? This is what you were thinking, kind of showing that feedback loop. And then once everybody's happy with it, the goal would be by fourth quarter to come to you as council with proposed changes and budget implications to maybe start something in 2022. So that's an example of you could apply this to climate, you could apply this to other categories that might come down the pipeline, but this is an example. If you want to hit that next slide for me, Sam. And so this is something that I really love, our SMART goals. I'm super geeky about it, guys. Like, even if no one asked me to report these things, I keep track of these myself. So it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And what you can see here is on the top right, I've put up the council goals that we established at our council retreat. And then my coworker, Seth, helped me make this reporting sheet. So thank you, Seth. But you can see there, this is for the Department of Communications, like the area of my job. And the first goal there, it says improve resident outreach and communication. And the strategy is to educate residents about city council goals and actions. The implementation is that I would share posts and articles about efforts under the city council goal areas. The measure of success was that once each quarter, we share a topic with progress toward goals. And then I believe it hits all the performance objectives. And then the second one you can see would be a little bit more narrow, where it's like social media 3 times a week, 2,000 followers, and it hits objective number 5, which is service excellence. One of the reasons I think reporting to you and the public is a good idea of our goals is it really does show both the new things we're working on, which might be like some of the new topics like environmental efforts and social justice efforts, those kind of things, but it also shows the ongoing intentionality behind our service excellence. So when you look at like the leaf pickup or that our water is healthy and fine, that is service excellence, and it's important to value as well. And then I think the next slide. So we kind of want to stop there. We're right at the 20-minute mark and turn it over for discussion. But we wanted you to kind of see kind of what the process we were thinking of. And then if you like it, we can get to work in 21, or we can modify it and take a completely different approach. And so with that, open to discussion.
All right. Mr. Prithich.
I just want to say thank you. I was one of the people who was hoping to have an update because I wanted to see what was the vision. And I just, I really share the vision that you guys have laid out. I'm really excited by it. I see it as being really, I'm a person who has a dog-eared copy of our comprehensive plan, but most people didn't use it like I did. And so if we're going to invest the time and energy, I want it to be broad-based and successful. So I think this is a great vision, and we can work on this in phases and we can segment it. But I'll ask a question, which is, part of this is about staff work, but also it's about staff ownership, right? And it's ownership of our boards and commissions and partnership in not only defining the goals, but, you know, if I'm on the planning commission, I'm going to be the person who's going to have to help execute the goals. So Sam or Jessica, how would we engage all these great citizen appointees that we have, for example, in the development of the plan and helping do that work, but also in tracking and implementing after the plan's adopted?
I can take that. So I think it's going to depend on what the vision and the values are. So if we don't see a lot of difference from the 2008 comprehensive plan to now, then we may not need to create new task forces or new committees. We may be able to capitalize on the ones we already have. Or it could be mergers of ones that are out there already, whether it's planning related or environmental, for example. But so our goal is, of course, to leverage existing momentum and human capital rather than copying or being duplicative. And so we use the term feedback loop quite a bit. And the goal there was not to jump too far ahead of people, but not open up discussion without providing any suggestions at all. So we kind of want to set the table a little bit for some ideas. We might have to do some examples and get some feedback, whether that's from a board or commission or a new task force. We're not sure yet. So yeah, does that help a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be efficient in how we do this, and we do have these boards and commissions that are very familiar with the subject areas, and so I imagine the departments and those boards as being the center of the effort, that then the circles may be wider, so we do engage that coalition for communities and other partners. So anyway, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, and some aspects of our city operations are not governed by a board or commission because they haven't needed to be. And so that is where I've kind of worked with the department heads to find out, okay, what are your long-term goals? Obviously, many of you haven't been around when we have had some of the issues with water or sewer, for example. Some of you have, or landfill, that have been resolved. So we're sort of enjoying the benefits of that service excellence, and we're not looking at that as an issue. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan for future improvements to continue to stay resilient. And so those are more, kind of the quieter side of city operations that we need to make sure we don't forget about.
I saw Councilor Southard and then Councilor Elby.
Thank you very much. I think this is very well thought out and well presented. And I think this is a good plan for quite a number of reasons. But I was wondering at what point would we decide and plan for consultants, and how would that work in with the rest of the project? I just wonder at what the plan is for phasing that in, and who would be involved and how that would work. So I would appreciate some clarification on that matter.
I'll try to answer this one. So I think our vision is that Sam and I would kind of co-lead this, and Zach too. I mean, I think the three of us are pretty excited about it. But then, like, say, for example, we need to do a large citizen input campaign. Well, we might hire someone to help us do that. Or let's say we want to adopt a really strong climate chapter, and we can't do it with for some reason, we feel we can't do it with our climate action task force or environmental commission. Well, we might let them hire a consultant to answer a few questions to then define that chapter. So it will change from year to year based on what we're trying to update, but that's how we're anticipating using consultants, but still having it be staff-led.
Councilor Elby.
Yeah, I need to echo everybody's sentiment. This is awesome, and I appreciate you guys putting forth this effort. It's basically exactly what I envisioned the city to move towards regarding, at least to me, it looks kind of like a lean-based methodology. But one of the questions that I have about this is, in the presentation, the thing that stuck out to me the most was the reliance on communication. And I didn't note or see anything in the presentation regarding additional resources put towards that, because with this kind of process that you are presenting, you now have a communications team that both has to perform internal and external communications. So I'm wondering if in the process of creating this and implementing this initiative, what sort of resources are you guys going to need to facilitate those feedback loops, which would be, you know, the internal and external communications, as well as maintaining or creating the those hybrids that you talked about regarding the communication of the plan and the progression through those plans?
Yeah, you raise a good point. And I think it's my intention to hire graphic design assistants to help us do this and help us report this. And then also later in our council meeting tonight, I have a resolution for a new website. I think a new website design will allow us to have more flexibility for sharing this content. But you're right, making it easy to understand and informative for our public is going to take time and attention and resources. But I think I'm hoping we can use some of those consultant dollars for graphic design consultation as well.
All right. Saw Councilor Ragu's hand up.
This is really cool. I think that the ability and the desire to try to include as many people as possible in the overarching plan is awesome. And I know it was asked before, whenever you were talking about community outreach and having like small pockets and then making it bigger. What does that mean? Because I know I was a little alarmed at previous meetings whenever we talked about the exclusion of students and trying to discriminate against certain populations that are very vital towards our city. So what would that look like, that community outreach?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest pieces for me is doing intentional outreach to all citizens and having a diverse form of feedback. So whether that's online or in person or paper postcards, like I'm imagining like there might just be like a little postcard at coffee shops that says, tell us what you want the city to work on, and just a Dropbox. You know, it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be really different ways of reaching out to people. And so I think we would do some sort of annual survey every year with citizens. And then every 5 years, we would do a very intentional big outreach that's like planned and multiple dates and a longer time period to really do deeper dive. And so that's what I'm proposing to do.
I would also say, Chantel, that one of the traditional problems that we've had with long-range comprehensive planning for land use in Oxford has been we typically get the same people who are willing to serve on boards and commissions, who are highly invested and interested in the city's character, what it looks like, the economy. And there are other people who are maybe newer or don't have the time to serve on a board or commission, but still have great ideas. And so we want to be able to leverage that wisdom for the people who don't necessarily have the time to dedicate to a full task force commitment and still value that opinion. And so the great thing is with COVID, there's a lot of new technologies to get that kind of feedback, but there certainly are people who may not want to connect using technology, and they might need a representative to kind of act on their behalf. So there are some things with that communication and that input that we don't know yet, that we think that there are some highly skilled community engagement professionals that can help us with that part of it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I mean, just as a little historic background for those that haven't been around before, how we traditionally did this was to have large meetings at either the high school or the middle school and get, 300 to 500 people. It seems like, that each time we did a comprehensive plan, the amount of people that showed up went down by about a third each time. I don't know what our numbers were in 2008, but they were markedly smaller than 98. But that's how we generally did it. But I think now technology is really in our favor, to try, because I think we're not going to have those big public meetings, but I think we have technology in place. I love the idea about the postcards to get as much input as we can, because I think it's still going to be a challenge into next year. But but I like what you guys have presented a lot and the direction you want to go. I feel like staff will have a lot more ownership of the plan with more input in it. And I like us controlling it. I was never really that keen on how much the consultants added to the process the past couple of times anyway. So I think it looks great so far. Yes.
I agree with everybody, and I'm excited about the project. And saving a little bit of money on external consultants is going to be important this year. And fortunately, we have an outstanding staff, and I trust them, and I think they will do a good job. You know, just you got to keep it moving. That's the thing.
And Mr. Prithich. You're muted, David.
But just to build on that, I mean, to me, one of the failures of the 2008 plan, it was an incredibly elaborate plan, but it wasn't embedded in decision making other than in a few departments. And so it was not utilized to the degree, you know, we didn't get the return on the investment. So to me, what I'm really excited about is to see how this can become part of just the DNA of decision making in the city of Oxford, so that it's a live document and we're working with it all the time. So just quick question. One of the things I imagine going in is that we'll need a template of kind of what the plan's going to look like, you know, like the chapters, because I imagine we might have lots of different efforts that could plug in, a charrette here and a charrette there. You used the example of the city of Hamilton. My students have written neighborhood scale plans that form 3 chapters in their plan. So can we imagine a template that then can, when we have a group that wants to talk about age-friendly issues, that we can plug that in a way that it, you know, contributes to, rather than being a totally separate effort?
So the idea here, sorry, Jessica, didn't mean to speak over you, but the idea here is that the plan will speak as one author. It'll have one consistent kind of branding theme to it. So whether it's all done at the same time or spread out, I don't think is important right now. But yes, we don't want to repeat previous efforts. Obviously, Age Friendly Oxford has kind of done as Zach would put it, they've already done kind of a comprehensive plan of their own. You know, so those values may already come out through this process. And so, but yeah, if we can use student efforts, we will. But as Bill said, you know, we kind of have to keep it moving. So if we can't meet the academic calendar for that effort, then, you know, we'll continue on our own. But yes, having the ability to plug those things in. But I think the important thing for encouraging the community to realize that it is part of our DNA is to not have it too complex, too lengthy. And so that's really going to be a key aspect of whether it's through Jessica's office or through the consultant, and helping us be able to break down the various levels of complexity into, you know, you see newspaper, online news articles that say, okay, this is a 5-minute read, you know, this is a half hour, you know, so people know going in, okay, this is something that I can digest. Otherwise, we're just going to lose interest, and then we then lose that ownership, not only for staff but also for the community members.
I see. Mr. Snavely's hand.
Sam, I agree with you, and I think that's key, to have it be user-friendly. I think if you get too much information, if it's just loaded up with a lot of verbiage, then people aren't going to read it and people are not going to remember it. And I think if you are on target and you've got visuals to back it up, it's something that people can refer to all the time and people can understand it. And if they don't understand it, they can't use it, and then it doesn't serve its purpose.
Let me get Councillor Southard, and then we'll come to Mr. Elliott.
2 things I like about this is that it allows us, if it's staff-led, to be flexible. I mean, for instance, nobody predicted what would happen this year with COVID. And so we do need to have some flexibility built in for some contingency planning for things that happen and for disasters that happen. So I think that is good. And so the flexibility, I like the the possibility of flexibility and the contingency planning and the disaster preparedness that this implies. And the other thing is that I also like that it is a long-term plan that actually goes beyond us, that goes beyond this council into the future, and is an avenue that can, it allows us to move forward into the future very effectively. And so that's, I think that's really great as part of this planning. It's not just a strategic planning document that, you know, I too have it and consult it and look at it, but, you know, it's a document that is over, you know, it's finished. Well, this is the way you've described it, it will be something that lives and that can change and that can adjust to whatever may happen in the future.
Mr. Elliott, did you have some comments?
Sure. I just wanted to say, we talked a little bit about the 2008 plan. What we want here is a plan that is concise, is a workable plan, and something that we can focus our efforts on, and it will not be static. If you have looked at the 2008 plan, and I too have a dog-eared copy, but we had in there basically 10 goals, 56 objectives, and 250 some strategies. And it's like, oh my gosh, how just to take 2 days to report on what we've accomplished on all those was a Herculean task. I mean, we had such things in here as establish a policy to discourage future right-of-way vacations. Well, sometimes that makes sense. So I'm not sure how little goals like that got in. And so, you know, we want to focus more on the big picture and have a plan that's workable and that we can change from time to time. So, you know, I think we're headed in the right direction here.
Yeah, Mr. Prithridge. You're muted, David.
Sorry. This is actually a question for Mr. Elliott, because I think that, you know, what I'm really hoping is, like Councilor Southard said, that this is, even new councilors would come into this, and new managers in the future would come into this and see this as something that they. So Doug, I mean, how do you see different departments fitting into this? You know, maybe departments that haven't necessarily been comp plan oriented the same way as community development, but are part of it, you know, whether it's the water distribution system. So how do you see engaging those departments, both in terms of developing the plan, but then also implementing it, so that it is not just a community development or manager's office plan, but all divisions are tasked with helping implement it?
Well, sure. Clearly, we're, you know, evolving this as we talk about it. And this is a new approach, but I think it's captured in the fact that they're talking more about it as a strategic plan rather than a comp plan. And so that's how we involve the department heads in it. So this is a somewhat whole new approach for us, and we're widening our areas of concern, getting into, shall we say, social issues that we haven't in the past. In our past comp plan, it was more focused on the physical characteristics. But we're suggesting that we move beyond that. So, you know, this is new for me too. I've always done the traditional comp plan. I'm excited about this change, and as I think all of you are as well too. So as we continue to play this out, we'll have more information for you. And certainly we want broad community input. I have signed the agreement with Polco. And not only do we get the police services survey, but we have the opportunity to do polling from time to time. And that'll, I think, will be very valuable for us here. And we'll rely on their expertise to help us with that. And then, of course, every year we can do either a police services survey, or every other year do a community survey, something that Jessica was talking about. So I'm excited about it. There's a lot of work ahead for us. I'm hoping that the vaccine comes out soon so that we can get back to a normal life and more social interaction. But, you know, I think we've got a good plan for us here.
Yeah, let me go down, Councilor Ragu.
That's great, Doug. To follow up on what you said, I guess it makes sense to we have this already access email from Miami as far as student population and also staff. So is that something that we would leverage rather, or are we only relying on the emails that the city has?
I didn't get to hear all your question. You cut out.
Whenever can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Whenever we send out these pollings in the future, which I think is awesome. I mean, what a great way to leverage technology and also try to get back feed inputs. Would we also be using the emails that Miami can provide for students and also staff, or would we only be relying on emails that the city already has, that the newsletter goes out to?
I'm learning more about their service. As I understand it, the polling would be like a web-based poll that anybody could participate in. They consider that different than the surveys where we do a random sample survey. But even with that survey, when we do a random sample survey, we'll also allow anyone in the community that wants to comment on it, but we'll get results for the random sample survey as well as anyone else who wants to comment on it. So as I learn more, I'll share more with you. But as I understand the polling, it'll be more web-based, and we'll just need to get the information out that, hey, we have these questions we'd like for you to answer, and we'll need to get that out to the, the students as well as the full-time residents here in Oxford.
All right. I think we have a pretty good consensus for you guys to proceed. I'm just thinking about next steps. Will you come back to us maybe early in the new year, maybe with a list of chapters that we can?
Yeah, I think Sam, Zach, and I will meet and probably make an action plan now that we have your feedback, and present to you kind of what we're thinking and a timeline and our proposed next steps. And Sam, if you wanted to, or Zach, if you want to chime in on any other thoughts there.
I would probably get some ideas on cost too. That's a concern. So we would go to that. But Zach didn't get a chance to talk, so I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, I think you guys did a good job presenting. About the only thing I would add is that I think we are actually ready to, begin in a sense writing the first chapter, which is the history section, and then looking at the existing conditions as well. So relying on the housing study and then the census data that will eventually be released. That would be kind of our first start, I suppose.
Mr. Prithridge.
So I guess one of the things what's going to help guide the big picture frame, I guess, for me, is that, like, in an organization, you might do that mission and vision statement first, right? Which is the really high level thing. And then you can work on those chapters together. Do you imagine in 2021 that maybe we reconvene people and revisit the 2008 goals and make sure that the big picture frame is what we wanted to do? Because then we can dive into the themes, knowing that we've got the general feel of the greatest number of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do. And we may be able to do that ourselves without a consultant. But I think we want to do kind of emulate the SWOT analysis type of approach where, we talk about what some of our risks are and see if the audience or the participants agree with those risks, because we may have some economic challenges in the next decade or two, with revenue, for example. We may need to be more diverse. And so that's where that kind of idea for economic resiliency, for example, so that's some new territory we haven't dealt with in Oxford probably ever, but we need to.
All right. With that, if there are no further questions or comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved
by Mr. Snavely, second. Second by Councilor Ragu. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll so we can adjourn the work session?
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right. Actually done early.
So I'm going to put up a slide that says work session complete and city council begin at 7:30. So if everyone would kind of just mute and go off camera for about 15 minutes, and we'll see you back shortly. right, just a reminder, we are actively being recorded, like we're still on.
You're muted, Bill.
Good reminder, Jessica.
I was about to say very embarrassing things. Thank you for that.
Restart the video. I can't get myself to come up.
Won't go back on.
I could. Marion, if you can hear me, wiggle your mouse at the bottom left of your screen should be a mute button and a stop video. It'll have a line over it and you should be able to click it. Or at the top 3 dots of your name, if you wiggle your name, and there'll be like a little 3 dots, you can click on it and say start video.
Jessica, I'll go run up and check on them.
Thank you. I shouldn't have done that, but I went downstairs and I saw that you could see Marianne on the TV, like and I was like, oh, she wouldn't like that. And so I turned her camera off.
I'm present, by the way. I just didn't think you all wanted to watch me eat food. So
Thank you, Jason.
Jason, when we do get started, you probably want to turn your camera on because on YouTube, you can only see people with cameras on. But since we're not started quite yet.
but I won't be done eating.
They won't know you're present then.
I'll just make lots of noise.
Hey.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry about that, Marianne. I've got you muted too, Marianne, so you'll have to unmute.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
All right. After that short technical difficulty, I think we're ready to call to order the Tuesday, November 17th, 2020 Oxford City Council meeting. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Miss Ragu,
Here.
Mr. Snavely,
Here.
Miss Southard,
Here.
Mr. Bracken,
Here.
Mr. Ellerby,
Here.
Mr. Prithridge,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Snavely, second.
Seconded.
Second by Councilor Southern. Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll to approve the agenda?
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Miss Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Miss Ragu,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, we're going to go straight into public participation. So anyone wishing to address council about items that are not on the agenda, please state your name and address for the record. And please try to keep your comments below 5 minutes. I will be keeping track. So Mrs. Green, is there any public comments tonight?
Yes, we have a few people. The first is Mr. Humphrey. Go ahead.
Hi, can everyone hear me? So hi, everyone. This is Brandon Humphrey. I live at 609 Ogden Court. I'm not speaking on behalf of any group tonight, and instead I'm here simply as a concerned community member. And I'm concerned because I read in the Miami Student earlier today that OPD has issued 0 mask ordinance citations, even as cases of coronavirus skyrocket in Butler County and across Ohio, and indeed across the nation. And in this Miami Student article, Lieutenant Fenning said that the city manager's office was handling mask enforcement, but Seth Kropenbaker says only OPD can issue citations. And I understand that when this ordinance was first passed, City Manager Elliott said that the focus would be on education, and Chief Jones said that OPD would focus their enforcement on businesses and not on individuals. I get all that. But at a certain point, don't we have to ask, is this system of educating the public and giving warnings but not citations to businesses working? Now, I live here in Oxford. I shop at Kroger and Walmart like everyone else. I go uptown to try to support our local businesses like Bodega and Sohai. You know, and anytime I'm uptown, whether I'm supporting those businesses or just driving through, I see people, and that's students and non-students, not wearing masks. And, you know, I plan to visit family for Thanksgiving. I have elderly grandparents. I have a mom who has emphysema. And I hope you'll excuse my language, but I'm pissed knowing that I could unknowingly give them this virus because I picked it up from someone in Oxford not wearing a mask. So I guess my question here is, when's OPD going to start taking this threat to public safety seriously? Almost 6,000 people in Ohio won't be seeing their families this holiday season because they died from COVID-19. So when's OPD going to start issuing citations to businesses that don't enforce the mask ordinance in their stores and to individuals who aren't wearing their masks uptown? So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, at some point here, before we get out of public comments, can we have a discussion of this topic?
Yes, we can. All right. Next.
I'm looking to see if there's other raised hands. If you'd like to speak during public comment, now would be the time to raise your hand. Okay, next we have Ms. Shaman. Ms. Shaman, go ahead.
Good evening, Amy Shaman, 11 Heather Ridge Court here in Oxford. Thank you to council, as always, for the opportunity for public comment. And I want to thank the individual who spoke a moment ago, I believe Brandon. I was unaware of this article in the Miami Student. I had not yet read it today, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I also want to speak about that and one other thing. And I agree very much that we need to enforce this mask policy. I was one of the members of the community who spoke back in the summer about the importance of having a mask ordinance and having mask rules. I by far was not alone. And we need to enforce this. This is a matter of life and death. And this is a matter of life and death for so many people. You all took the responsibility of passing an ordinance. I appreciate the desire that Councilman Snavely mentioned to have a discussion of it and figure out a way to enforce it so that there can be some teeth behind it so we really can save lives and have there be more than a suggestion. So thank you for that. I look forward to hearing the conversation. I also want to speak this evening in favor of the work that City Council and the PCRRC and the local Black Lives Matter chapter have been doing on the recommendation for the independent task force to look at crisis response. And I would like to share my voice in favor of the PCRRC recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, but we do have other people here. They might just be speaking later or ask to speak later.
All right, while we're at the topic at hand, let's talk about the mask ordinance for a minute. All right, Mr. Snavely.
I'm sure my colleagues all have something that they'd like to say about it. I'm just disgusted and outraged, and I sent everybody a copy of the Miami University Miami student article that Brandon was referencing. I've seen it firsthand. Large groups of students gathering at the door to local drinking establishments, the door staff standing right there, making no effort to get people to use the lines that are put out on the pavement to socially distant. Almost no one had face masks on. I've called it in a number of times until the chief is probably tired of seeing it from me. Even as of today, there was a line that went all the way down an alley and out onto High Street, and it was not socially distant, it was not masked. So my questions are many. Do we not have foot patrols? Do we not have police to be able to, at minimum, remind people? I know that some of these businesses have been reminded on more than one occasion, and at some point there has to be enforcement. Frankly, for me, I would like to see all of Uptown, the same district that we use for Dora, designated an absolute you have to have mask area of town. We can't have this. If we want our businesses to be open, we can't have the spread of disease. And the comment that was just made a minute ago by Amy is right on target. And Brandon, I mean, Brandon's wanting to go home for Thanksgiving. You know, we just had to cancel our Thanksgiving celebration because I just don't know that we're safe in not spreading it to our children and grandchildren, and I'm not sure that they're safe not spreading it to us. This is serious, and masks are not a political issue. Now, I've said that before, but it just isn't. It's a health issue, and we need to take it seriously, and I'm mad about it.
Let's go to Mr. Elliott, and you're still muted.
Well, I made some prepared comments because Councilor Snavely did share the article with me. I hadn't had a chance to read the Miami Student yet today, but we all know that the cases are surging in the US and in Ohio. I track them with the Johns Hopkins University. They place each day a number of cases in each state, and it shows Ohio increasing from an average of 2,372 new cases per day 3 weeks ago to 7,190 average new cases per day this week. This is a total of 305,364 cases since January. Ohio was 7th in the nation in population and 10th in total COVID cases. So I think this clearly explains the governor's recent order and pronouncements, including today's curfew, 10 p.m. curfew. But I also think it's useful to look beyond Ohio's increasing numbers and focus on what's happening here in Oxford and Miami University. First, let's examine Miami University's COVID cases utilizing their dashboard. We're all familiar with the surge in student cases when off-campus students returned in August and on-campus students returned. And this was about 5,000 students, or 60% of capacity. They returned in mid-September. The cumulative cases since October 17th are 2,330, with Miami conducting 33,921 tests. So the current 7-day moving average of new positive cases is 10, demonstrating, I think, the effectiveness of Miami's testing and other policies to control the virus. What about the rest of the population? How are we doing? If we utilize the Butler County Board of Health's recent report for the 45056 zip code, which includes the city of Oxford plus Milford and Riley Township, it gives a total of 238 cases, or 2.1% of the total Butler County cases, excluding Miami University students. 8 other zip codes in the county have a higher percentage of confirmed cases than our zip codes. For many reasons, I believe this demonstrates that Oxford is having greater success than these other areas in containing this disease. Also, if we further focus our concern and look at our local hospital, the situation was recently described by Mike Everett as stable. They currently have enough staff and equipment and have refined their surge plan if needed. As of Monday, because we meet each Monday to discuss, they have 5 patients tested positive for COVID, with 1 Oxford resident among those 5. Also, McCullough High Memorial Hospital is utilizing internal transfers of these patients with other Tri-Health System hospitals. They have a total of 6. Once again, no Miami University student has been hospitalized. So my purpose for providing this information is to provide you some local perspective to the concerns for the surge in COVID cases in the nation as a whole in the state of Ohio. But it is not to suggest that we are out of the woods or should rest on our laurels, by no means. All of us must remain vigilant and stay the course. That means wearing face coverings, frequent hand washing, avoiding crowds, and family gatherings. There is help on the way with the prospect of a couple promising vaccines by Moderna and Pfizer after the first of the year. And this, of course, is welcome news for all of us suffering from this COVID fatigue and lack of social interaction. But lastly, I want to comment on the recent Miami Student article regarding the lack of enforcement of the city's face covering ordinance, which was adopted by council just 4 months ago. As I've stated several times, this is a new responsibility and requirement that we are imposing on businesses and residents. It has required some time to learn of the requirement and to adjust. COVID concerns received on our website are reviewed, with businesses receiving telephone calls, and we also sent out several notices of violations and orders to comply, letters to these repeat offenders. Once again, I feel strongly that education and encouragement is the better way to go than issuing citations by OPD, especially in this environment of consideration of excess policing and related police budgets. Let's face it, health literacy, or the ability to read and understand healthcare information to make the appropriate health decisions, is still a formidable problem, especially as it relates to face coverings. I would encourage the Miami student to print a series of CDC articles on the benefits of face coverings, especially given the misinformation on social media and confusing messages from many of our national political leaders. I'm reminded of President Nixon's war on drugs, where violators were cited, arrested, and imprisoned. I think it's fair to say that it did not solve the drug problem, but resulted in mass incarceration and destroyed lives and families. Like the war on drugs, the city cannot cite its way out of this lack of compliance with our face covering requirement, but further education and information may make a big difference. So I know you may not agree with me, but I just feel very uncomfortable by having our police go out and cite students by the probably hundreds. And I might share with you that doesn't necessarily mean that citation will hold. They have the opportunity to appeal these citations. We issued citations for our mass gathering ordinance. And when they went to court, the administrative judge found that 5 of the 6 were not guilty. 1 of the 6 had already paid his fine. And it seemed that the evidence that we presented at the time was not enough in the case, and the arguments made by the respondents were stronger. So please keep that in mind. And I'll end my comments. Thank you.
All right, let me get Councilor Ragu, Councilor Bracken, and Councilor Prithridge.
Thanks for bringing that up. As far as, I don't believe it was a judge. I think it was our hearing examiner, correct? That's not the same thing as a judge. Tara Jones was the one who decided that the respondent not guilty. I emailed Governor DeWine about that earlier today, and especially with his kind of really trying to buckle down on the mask mandate and letting him know that we're receiving a lot of obstructionism in our local court system and what his advice is on that. And I think that this is all very timely with the Black Lives Matter movement and talking about policing in general. When this was posted on Oxford Talk on Facebook, this story, and a lot of people responded with, like, the police don't have anything else to do. And I get that. I get that point. And I think that's something that all of us understand, that we are asking them to do a lot of stuff. And there is a global pandemic added on top of this, and new local ordinances and statewide ordinances too, that we're asking them to follow up on. So my response to that argument is, let us help you debundle your duties. Let us help you take away some of those duties that you probably didn't become a police officer to do. Let us take that away. And that is what the task force is for. And the other thing that I look at this, with the lack of enforcement on the mask mandate and the mass gathering ban, is that there's, and I've heard Chief Jones use this word a lot, that there's a lot of discretion whenever they decide which ordinances to actually enforce. And within that discretionary nature, that is where that judicial bias begins, not only with our hearing examiner, but also whenever it comes to issuing the citation to begin with. So the police, and I've said it so many times before, there's always a place for the police for dangerous crime and detective work. And whenever we're looking at physical endangerment, sexual assault, domestic violence, a global pandemic that is killing millions of people, that is what I want police to focus on. So let us debundle all those things you don't want to do. That is what the task force is meant to do, so that you can focus on things that actually save people's lives. And I know that the police are overworked, but they are incredibly brave people, the ones that run towards the danger. So I want to do whatever we can so that they can focus on the things that we are asking them, begging them to, as of importance.
All right. Councilor Bracken.
Yeah, I agree with much of that. But going back, I don't think this is anything at all like the war on drugs. People's lives won't be ruined by a $100 fine. People's lives will be ruined if they get COVID or their family members get COVID, and they might pass away. They might have huge doctor bills. Their business might have to shut down. That's where the real threat is. This isn't going to play out like the war on drugs at all. And I agree with a lot of what Chantel said. I'm sure they don't want to be the mask police, and I don't want to put that on them. I would suggest that we create a position in which we have somebody who's enforcing just public health violations, right? Why can't we have a person who just does that specifically? They could issue fines as necessary. They could do foot patrols. And then, you don't need a police officer there, and they do have better things to do. Not that this isn't incredibly important, but you don't need a person with a gun showing up to give a $100 fine because somebody's not wearing a mask, right? And so if we took that away from them, then they wouldn't be quite as busy. We wouldn't have those issues with police community relations. That seems like an easy answer to me. And I think this is one good example that applies to a number of other areas, which is sort of what's been being discussed about community policing. So I think we need to do something, and that's something I think we might want to consider.
Let me get Councillor Prithridge, then Councillor Southard, then Councillor Snavely.
So as one of the people who pushed early, along with others, for ordinances both related to masks and mass gatherings, and we were obviously out ahead of Ohio in terms of its enforcement by months. We did that because I think we didn't do it because we thought it wouldn't be enforced. When the op-ed, when the editorial headline is, "We want our law enforcement to well enforce the law," ouch. I don't expect we should be enforcing on hundreds of people, but the fact that we've enforced on 0 makes me wonder, where the disconnect is between the legislative will to do this and the enforcement of it. Again, I know this is really a tricky business, and I honestly agree with Manager Elliott. I think the city has done a good job. I think Miami has ultimately gotten it under control. But 0 enforcement actions in the months that we've had to adjust. I think we got to do better. And if there was ever a time, it would be now, right? So I would ask that we be judicious. I know there are businesses. I got my hair cut, and I can't believe I didn't get COVID from the experience. So we don't have 100% compliance. And again, it's tough, but let's step up to the challenge we set for ourselves and for the OPD. So thanks.
Councillor Southard.
Well, I think City Council doesn't pass ordinances to have them not be enforced. We pass them for a reason, and we thought carefully and hard about this one. I think that ordinances can't be picked and chosen. It's not, they must be enforced. Now, I understand that the police may not want to enforce this and is uncomfortable doing so. And in fact, I think it was quoted in the article that putting on a mask is the last thing you think about when you're going to an emergency. Well, that may be, but maybe now is the moment to get someone else to do the work, to get a psychological social worker to explain to people why, if you don't understand that this is a disastrous situation, that half of the population is not going uptown because they don't feel safe. They're not going for haircuts. They're not going to restaurants because it's not safe for them, because they're at risk. So let's find somebody to do the work and go with police backup. They need police backup, but a social worker, psychological social worker, perhaps could explain why the evidence, why people have to think about other people than themselves, and why they have to be more ethically concerned about the population in general. Maybe this is the moment to make that change and to make it so that our town could be a model for how this could be done. It's been 4 months since we passed this. That's too long to have no enforcement at all. And I think that what's happening is that people just don't go uptown. At least a large segment of the population does not go uptown.
Let me get Vice Mayor Snavely, and then we'll come back around to Councillor Ellerby.
2 things. One is the city manager's statement. While I'm sure it was well intended and you didn't mean it quite the way I'm about to say it, here's what it sounded like. Hey, everything's cool. We're okay. Everything's fine. Well, everything isn't fine. And you know what? I'm not even so worried that we're not giving out tickets to every person who doesn't have a mask on. But there are several businesses, bars, uptown, on High Street and in alleys that have repeated violations. And the police have been there repeatedly and asked them to follow the guidelines. And those businesses are laughing at us. And so they're just trying to make as much money as they can until all the students leave and go home for vacation. They're ignoring us. And so it's the businesses that need to be dealt with. And all we're doing is a wink and a nod and look the other way. And I'm fed up.
Councillor Ellerby.
I agree that the mask ordinance needs to be enforced. I also concur with City Manager Elliott that the city of Oxford is an educational city and we should lean towards education before enforcement. What I don't know right now, because I don't have complete information, is if there are records of warnings that have been issued, or if there are police reports where the police have gone to places and advised individuals to at least wear masks or enforce mask policies as mandated by the state. What I would like to see is record of at least warnings being given out. I know that there are currently 3 days left before the students leave and are to be suggested to go home, whether they stay off campus residence or not. That's up to the people that live there, but the ones living in the dorms are to be sent home on Friday. So that may significantly reduce the amount of individuals uptown regarding student population. But one thing that I do know, both anecdotally and from aggregation due to social media, is it's not just contained to uptown. This is happening everywhere in Oxford. So one of the things that I do want to see is enforcement, but I also want to make sure that we preserve that educational aspect. So I would like to see a significant increase in warnings being given out. And then if people have a second violation, then they would get the actual citation. That's how I believe that we can most reasonably move forward with enforcement of this particular policy. And we can at least show the public that we are serious about addressing a crisis that, like many other people have said, and I agree, is a matter of life and death. Now, I went through it. I'm fine. I survived. I guess I'm one of the lucky ones. But, half of the town here is very high risk. And I would hate to see half of our town come under a serious issue because of the negligence of certain individuals. And I tried to do everything right. Wore my mask, stayed inside when I needed to, only went out for provisions when necessary. But here I am. So, I understand the ramifications of this thing, and I went through it firsthand, and I know what it's like. There are a lot of people out there that say, oh, it doesn't exist, or it's a myth or something like that. You know what? When you roll those dice, when you get that cough, when that fever shows up, when you can't breathe and you start thinking really weird, then you're going to know firsthand how wrong you were. But please do not cause that to happen to someone else who's trying to do everything right. So I want to implore our public to be kind to each other. And by being kind to each other, you wear a mask. A mask is a visual representation of your consideration to one another. It's a damn shame that we have to actually get our law enforcement involved in this. So it starts with our public. It starts with you. Quit being so concerned about yourself, and please try to consider other people, especially during this time.
Go back to Vice Mayor Snavely and then Councilor Bracken.
Yes, I'd like to know what the city says to those restaurant and bar owners that are following the rules. Because right now, I think what we're saying is you're a fool to follow the rules, because the competition isn't following the rules at all. And I think many of us have seen it. And there's crowds and they're all hugging and no masks and, oh, it's okay. I mean, what is the incentive for a business to follow the damn rules when we do nothing about those who flaunt them on a daily basis?
Yeah, let me get Councilor Bracken and we'll come back around to Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If warnings work, that's fine, but I don't think this is an educational issue. I think everybody knows they're supposed to be wearing masks uptown, and where the businesses know that have been violating this. People know what they're supposed to do. They need to do it. And if we need to enforce that, that's what needs to happen. And I also wanted to point out that while students might be going home soon, I don't think we should use that as an excuse not to act on this, because one, I'm worried about them taking it home to their families, as Brandon said and others have mentioned. I said that months ago, that one of the things I was worried about is Thanksgiving, when it's spread throughout the nation and people are with their elderly parents, grandparents. So I don't want that to happen. And this is going to continue, despite having 2 vaccines that look really promising, they will not be delivered anytime soon in anything close to mass numbers. All right, we're going to be dealing with this way past even next semester is most likely outcome here. So I think we need to act on this as best we can right now. And I wanted to ask Doug if you knew if any updates on the deaths from COVID in the 45056 area code since we last talked.
I don't have any more information than was in the recent Butler County Health Department report. Let me say this, we've had enough discussion, and I think I hear clearly. I'll meet with staff tomorrow and we'll put together a game plan for making some citations, and we'll do the best we can. So I think we can end the discussion. I got the message.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good discussion. I agree. I'm ready for us to take the gloves off. I think the education period is over. All right. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I see a hand from Mr. Prithridge and a second from Councilor Southard. Okay. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Item A.
All right. Let's remove item A. Let me get a vote on everything but item A. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Eaton, you call the roll on everything but item A.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right. Questions on item A, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes. So if you look on page 10, I was reading about the resolution, Safe, Healthy, Equitable Oxford, and what's not reflected in the minutes, and I don't know if it's an omission in the minutes or if we didn't follow proper procedure. But any motion, before you can table it, it has to be moved and seconded. It's not, I assume that Dave moved it, although I don't recall that, but I don't see anything in there about who seconded the motion. And since I'm trying to follow the Robert's Rules of Procedure, I'm concerned, and maybe somebody did second it, but I just want to get that either put into the minutes or remind ourselves that we need to second a motion before we discuss it. Thanks.
Yes, I have in my notes, because I keep track of seconds, that Councilor Southard seconded the tabling motion.
Okay, can we just somehow get that into the minutes then? I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Now I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Ms. Eaton, will you, or I need a second, or motion by Mr. Snavely, second by Councilor Prithridge. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll to approve item A minutes as corrected?
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, now we will move on to resolutions. And our first resolution was tabled from the last meeting. May I have a motion to remove it from the table? Motion by
moved.
I'm seeing.
So moved to remove it off the table.
All right. Second by Counselor Ellerby. All right. Roll call vote to remove it from the table. Ms. Eaton.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
No.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
No.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. All right, so we've taken the resolution from the table. We left off at council discussion with the resolution. So
do you want me to just provide another quick overview just for those folks maybe who weren't at our last meeting, and then we can have further council discussion. I don't know whether there was additional public comment on it, but I'll just real quickly in synopsis. This was in response to the PCRRC recommendation, which, as well as ongoing police efforts to reform and improve its own performance. So what I've tried to do is create a resolution that breaks apart two things. Those things that are specific.
you're fading out a little bit, David. We can't hear you. Lost you all together.
Can't hear you.
No, can't hear you now.
Even when you're unmuted, it might be your computer.
Me now?
Barely.
I'll try to talk, and if I don't, then I'll leave, and then y'all come back.
Okay, we got you good now.
We can hear you.
So what I've tried to do here is to bifurcate those things. I think that my resolution supports the continued improvement in how the OPD responds to those things that deal with social and behavioral health issues within the framework of policing. And I think those things are best dealt with by the OPD and the OPRRC, because those are within the scope of that board and that agency. So whether that's continued improvement in training or partnership with other organizations, how to improve policing. The bigger picture question that I saw in the PCRRC that was about much broader issues about, they framed it alternatives to policing. I'm happy we had a conversation about the comprehensive plan, because I would like this to be goal driven, which is what is the vision for how we respond to public health and safety and social justice issues. And so to me, I think that's the most productive way to have that conversation within the framework of the comprehensive plan. And I was really excited to see an example of how we might do that. I think that reframes the issue slightly, but I think is a more productive way. And I think the very same people would be at the table. I did not want to specify who exactly would be at the table, because I wanted to hear what our comprehensive plan was. And so who that group of people that would work on that issue would yet to be determined. But again, the comprehensive plan to me seems like a really constructive place to have a much broader conversation about social behavioral health issues, but also just general health and social justice. So that's the spirit and intent of the resolution.
Okay. Questions, further questions, discussion? Mr. Snavely, and then we'll go to Councilor Ragu and Councilor Bracken.
You know, I guess I would rather see just a clean resolution that reflects what the PCRRC recommended. This is essentially just throwing it back at them.
Hey, Bill,
and
don't we need
if not, then it's not clear. So I would, that's why I voted to keep it on the table. Either that, or Jessica had mentioned that maybe it could be also discussed as part of this grant for the healthy communities. I don't know what the best approach is, but I don't think this is it. And I appreciate, Dave, you trying to get it moving. And I really do. And I think it was well-intentioned, well-meaning, but I don't think sending it back to them or wrapping it up in the comprehensive plan is the way to go. That's just my opinion.
Here, Councilor Ragu.
Did we ask for public comment before discussion from council?
We had public comment 2 weeks ago during the opening reading.
Okay, so the second readings, we don't ask for public comment?
And we've already passed the public comment section.
Okay, all right. Dave, I know you respect our committee's opinions. I know there's been a lot of problems in the past whenever we've ignored what the boards and committees have worked on. Things have just been squirreled away in a desk and it doesn't come before council. I think the biggest problem I see with this, and I echo what Bill said, I know this is well-intentioned, but we're ignoring what the PCRRC said. It was their advice to create a task force. And I do agree that I think that we're ignoring what they said. And I would suggest to maybe remand this to PCRRC to give their input on, because you're asking them to do this work that they've already told you is challenging for them to complete.
Councilor Bracken?
I agreed with all of that, but I also wanted to request, is there any chance we can open it up to public comment? I feel it's kind of weird that we table something, people comment on it, and then we come back to it and we've lost track of public thought on the matter.
I would be willing to take limited public comment, but they're gonna have to keep the comments to, under 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea who's on or who might want to speak, so Jessica might be able to address that, or who's ever running our meeting this time.
We have quite a few people watching, probably 7 or 8 who might want to speak if we open it up. I don't know.
Can I make a motion to open up public comments?
Second.
I'd second.
All right. Mary Ann, you want to take a quick roll call on opening up public comments?
Mr. Prithridge.
Yeah.
Ms. Ragu.
Yes.
Mr. Snavely.
Yes.
Ms. Southard.
Yes.
Mr. Bracken.
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, if you'd like to make public comment at this time, please click the raise hand button. And I have one, Mr. Humphrey. Go ahead, Mr. Humphrey.
Hi again, everyone. Essentially, I just want to say that I think I pretty much agree with everything that Vice Mayor Snavely said. Councilor Prithridge, I really appreciate his resolution. I think that it's well intentioned. I think we all recognize that. But there are some issues with it. And when PCRC first recommended that a task force be formed, it seemed like many councilors agreed with that. And so, I don't see any harm in in passing a resolution that as Vice Mayor Snavely has said, simply reflects, in a clean way what PCRC has already recommended. So that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Landon Knupp. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'm Landon Knupp. I'm a student at Talawanda High School, and I'm the president of the Diversity Club. And I would like to state that I support what the OCR and what the Oxford Black Lives Matter movement has presented. That is all. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have, it says Janice. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
It's Janice Dutton. And I agree with Bill and some of the other speakers that we need to go back to the original intent of the task force and the recommendation of the commission. And part of that reason is that the task force was to be made up of affected community members. And the other committees, I think, are all a really good idea, which you're talking about for the future. I love the idea of a strategic plan rather than a comprehensive plan. But that would be a different group of people, as would the healthy community thing would be a different group of people. It wouldn't necessarily encompass affected community members. I also see that this is an opportunity to collect data. It's almost like a pre-study study in a way that the commission cannot, it relies on complaints or reports from the police of what they've been doing. And I think this is a way to collect more data, more experiences from people in a way that I think something we need to know. And so I really encourage you to go back to the original intent. And also remember that the original founding of the police commission was started with a task force with the NAACP, and it's where we collected people's stories. So I think this new one, Dave, I just think it's overly complicated and there is room to do some of these things, but I'm not sure right now that's the way to go about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Taylor Callahan.
Hi, my name's Taylor Callahan and I'm a student at Talawanda High School. And I'd just like to say that I support the Oxford Black Lives Matter resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kathy Brinkman. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kathy Brinkman. I live at 404 Emerald Woods Drive. And I think that the comprehensive plan idea is good, but I think it's too soon. I think that the task force will have important information to provide to the comprehensive plan. So I think that the order is have the task force, get the input, do the study, identify the issues, understand what it is that we're working with, and then incorporate it into the comprehensive plan. And there may be other recommendations as well, but I think that that is the correct order of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, it says Lola. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lola Ryle, and I would just like to say I'm a student at Talawanda High School, and I support the Oxford, Ohio Black Lives Matter resolution. That's it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Isabel Smith. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Isabel Smith. I'm a student at Talawanda High School. I would like to say that I support the Oxford Black Lives Oxford Black Lives Matter resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that might be it. I do not see any of their hands raised. Thank you.
I saw Councilor Perthich hands up.
So just to clarify, I believe that if we're talking about policing and how we best improve the way the police department responds to issues related to social and behavioral health, then the PCRC is a good body because that's within the scope of its work. So that part of it, I think, is appropriate for them to talk about because, you know, where they were uncomfortable, to my understanding, is that looking at alternatives to policing, looking at much broader scope of issues was beyond the scope of their committee. And I agree with that. And that's why they kicked that out to us. I don't think that precludes that board from talking about how the OPD can be improved. And they can start talking about that right away. That's within the scope. I support the intent of what the Black Lives Matter suggested in the PCRC move forward. You know, I guess I look at how that's worded, and it's a task force with a very widely defined, incredibly broad mandate. And so to me, I'm not sure what the conversation exactly is meant to be about, other than alternatives to policing, as well as a host of other social ills. And where it leads us in a time also in which we're talking about a comprehensive plan. And I want our time to be spent in channeling it in ways that lead us towards an outcome like strategic goals. So I think there's only so much bandwidth that the city has. And so to me, rather than have conversation going all over, my belief is that the big tent of the comprehensive plan is the way that we can channel that energy and have that conversation in a way that's constructive. And I think we can do those two things. I think the OPRRC can focus on some of those things that are specific to policing in the here and now, and they can do that quickly. But if we're gonna have a bigger conversation that is really about how do we best respond to a whole host of other things, I think that conversation is going to take time. And to do that simultaneously and not connected with our comp plan, that doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I did this. It is complicated, but that's to me something that I think makes sense and could lead to a comp plan revision that would have lasting impact. And I think could involve the same people and have the same kind of data gathering process. Maybe it's semantics, but I'd rather have it under the tent. So, but I've said enough. Thank you.
All right, we'll get Councillor Ellerby, and I'll come back to Councillor Raghu.
Thanks, Mike. I actually spoke with a lot of people in between the last council meeting and this one, and I went back and looked at both resolutions, and they're mutually exclusive. Literally, both of these things can be done, and there is a little overlap, and that overlap is in regards to the acknowledgement that the PCRC and the OPD should work with each other regarding enforcement policies and other police related issues. But the second part of Mr. Prithridge's resolution is a high level resolution that basically is providing an acknowledgement from the city that we are going to integrate this as a major part of how the city moves forward. The task force that is presented by the PCRC in that resolution is what I would consider to be a tactical solution, whereas like, let's create a task force and start working on this kind of stuff. Now, that task force can happen. Like I said, I want to be a part of it. We just got new information where a large grant is provided to a Coalition for Healthy Communities. Maybe those two groups can work in tandem. That way that there's funding that can be applied to this, so we don't have to worry about funding this particular thing in a time where the city has limited resources due to environmental constraints. So in my opinion, where I had voted for the one prior to that, I'm going to vote for this one too, because they're both mutually exclusive and they both solve the same goal. So that's my piece about this.
All right, let's come back to Councillor Raghu.
Just to highlight again, I completely respect our boards and commissions recommendations, and I support, just like Bill said and other people have said, I support their initial proposal to us about creating a task force. I don't think there's ever anything wrong with additional transparency. If there's more discussion or more people involved and engaged, that is always the right answer. And I am so impressed by all the high school students that are in the room. Thank you so much for being here and being involved and just putting yourself out there. You warm my heart. So thank you so much. And Dave, I mean, in this past year, you were like the task force committee generator guy, right? Like you have a climate change task force, didn't require any funding from the city that I know of. You created a parking and transportation board. You love task forces. So I'm wondering why on this issue, whenever one of our respected committees recommends to generate a task force that looks at racial injustice and alternatives to policing, you are so adamantly against it. So I support what the PCRC has initially recommended, and everyone else who spoke before me in the public comments.
Back to Vice Mayor Snavely and then Councillor Southard.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing Chantel did about our students at Talawanda who, it's not easy to speak before a big group like this, and you did great, and we appreciate your input. I think that Kathy Brinkman had it right. It's a matter of sequential order that we take these things in. The task force doesn't cost us anything monetarily, but it allows them to get together and talk about it and provide input, which is really kind of what we do in the comprehensive plan. We try to go out there and get people to give us input. So this is focused. As Chantel said, it identifies what the issues are that they would be focused on. And let's let them do that. And then they can make their recommendation to the PCRRC, and then we'll get information that we can fold into our comprehensive plan. I think I agree with you, Dave, that that's where it ultimately ought to end up. And Glenn, I apologize, but I didn't follow all of your argument, because if they're mutually exclusive, then you can't do one without the other. That's what that means. And I think that you're right. If we send it back to the PCRRC, that is mutually exclusive from forming a task force of the people that have been identified to try and provide input. I don't think it hurts us to get that input. And I think that's what the public's saying. I think that's what our commission said, and I think we should listen to it.
All right, Councilor Southard.
I think it's a mistake to claim that voting either for or against this resolution is somehow for or against Black Lives Matter. And, the recommendations of Black Lives Matter and of PCRRC have been taken very seriously. And this resolution accepts those recommendations. I mean, that's what this resolution means, that we're accepting these resolutions, that their recommendations. I think that, getting this into the comprehensive plan is going one step further so that we can properly fund this, and so that City Council can move forward with the staff to actually fund this and make changes that will benefit our community. And so I think this is a very, very logical and good plan that does recognize and honor the spirit of and also the specific recommendations of the PCRRC and of the Black Lives Matter group. And I think that what I read here and what Councilor Prithridge has proposed makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Let's get Councilor Ragu and then Councilor Bracken.
I go back to the phrase of yes, and I completely agree with you, Edna and Dave. Let's fold this into the comp plan. I want a whole chapter trying to address any type of systemic discrimination that may be found within our city. So let's do that. I'm totally on board. You want to do that, do that. But I'm talking about, and the question wasn't if you vote for this resolution, are you against Black Lives Matters? If you vote for this, you are already ignoring the PCRRC recommendation to develop a task force. So that is what is on the table. Go ahead.
We get Councilor Bracken. We'll come back to Councilor Prithridge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I appreciate the sentiments, but it's not fully in the spirit. Like if it was, then we wouldn't have BLM one making recommendations saying this isn't exactly what they were proposing. And also we wouldn't have PCRRC given the proposal to us, right? They would have recommended something else. So if we want to be fully in the spirit of it, we should just do what was originally suggested. And I also agree with Chantel and David in that I would love to see this in the comp plan, but I also think it's backwards, which is what I said previously. And Kathy Brinkman was nice enough to also restate. I think it's good to get this first and incorporate it into the comp plan. So I'm not in favor of this. I'm in favor of the original proposal, and then maybe something after this in incorporating it.
Yeah, let's go back to Councilor Prithridge.
So I guess I take umbrage at the idea that I've expressed opposition to Black Lives Matter, who put this project on the agenda. You know, I don't see the other proposal on the agenda, and this is my good faith effort to reconcile in what I think is a logical way, in a lasting way. And so I will not be boxed into, I have not expressed opposition to anything. I have tried to create a constructive path forward in conversations with PCRC members, listening to a lot of different voices. And so I welcome anyone else to put the PCRC on the agenda and we can vote on it. It's not on the agenda. My resolution is on the agenda. And, you know, so I look forward to a conversation how we best move forward. I personally there's an oppositional politics to this that I think impedes our way forward. I think we need to have a consensus conversation, and that's what I'm trying to find here, as imperfect though it may be.
Yeah, let me get Councilor Ellerby.
Yeah, I'm very confused during this council discussion because this resolution doesn't state anywhere that it's forbidding the recommendation from the PCRC to create a task force. Like this is weird to me. Like I said, they're mutually exclusive. This is basically having the city acknowledgement that we should do this stuff. You know, and it's doing it in two pieces. It specifically states that the PCRC and the OPD should work together. And then we should have a comprehensive plan section to address public health and safety and social justice needs. It doesn't say anywhere that we shouldn't do a task force. And it doesn't say that we won't do a task force. Like the task force thing is still on the table with this. Like why?
We're losing you, Glenn. We're losing you.
Where's the reasoning behind saying this resolution is forbidding the suggestion from PCRC and Black Lives Matter Oxford to create a task force? I don't see it. I read through it again while everybody is in arguments. Still don't see it. So why is there so much opposition? I'm just confused about that. So, you know, like, again, I'm okay with both things. Like they're mutually exclusive. I don't get why there's such a argumentative discussion right now.
All right, let me get Councilor Ragu, Councilor Bracken, and then have some thoughts.
I think those are good questions that Glenn just asked, that what is the problem or what is the opposition? And like what Jason said, if this is what the Black Lives Matter, the PCRC had recommended, there wouldn't be as much opposition. And the reason why this resolution is it's kind of interjecting itself because there was already a path forward that the PCRC had recommended. Jessica and JJ were already talking about it and on board, it seemed like, in past meetings. And now this resolution is basically changing the timeline. So the difference is, although it may seem subtle, I suppose, is that the PCRC said that they wanted to generate a task force with extra expertise so that they can try to look at ways for alternative policing. So that ignores that part. And the other part is about timeline, that the task force that the PCRC had recommended to develop, not them, but the task force, would happen much more urgently than what would happen in the comp plan, correct? So when would we think about revising? When would we get to this task force? I'm assuming at least a year from now. So the question is about urgency whenever people are asking us to act on this.
The proposal says 6 months turnaround. The difference is almost the same. If you're talking about I don't see that this resolution could be passed and you could still have a task force and it would still be the same 6 months. That's exactly what the proposal says.
Then why, so if we're saying that it's redundant for the PCRC recommendation, why on earth is this resolution on the table if it's redundant? Why not just let the PCRC go forward? And what Jessica has mentioned in the past, we were already along a certain path. So this resolution, I mean, Dave, do you feel like it's redundant, or why did you insert this?
The first part of the resolution mimics the timeline that Jessica had discussed with the chief in terms of working in the short term prior to the budget, so that we can talk about potential budget items to improve policing within the framework of policing. The other thing is if this were part of the comprehensive plan, I didn't think it was realistic that we could turn it around as part of that plan prior to September. I guess to me, it's just how many different conversations in how many different directions do you have going? Or can you reconcile and channel the conversations that are happening simultaneously towards something that could be of a lasting impact like the comprehensive plan? That's to me, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not redundant. To me, it's a way of channeling energy in a way that I think could be lasting. It still involves data gathering and a lot of people around the table. And, I spoke at length with members of PCRC and Black Lives Matter about what their goals were. And it turns out the process is basically the same. Okay, so we can have a task force over here, and then we can have a working group for a comp plan over there. That to me seems redundant. I'd rather work on the comp plan, but that's me. And we can have another resolution that talks about the task force later. They're not mutually exclusive, but I'd rather focus on the comp plan in 2021, since that's what we're going to do in anyway. So I've said enough.
Here, I've been not holding my tongue, trying to distill this a little bit. I mean, the good news is we all want the same thing. We all want the best community police force we can have. We're just kind of arguing about the path as to how we get there. What I liked about David's resolution was it distilled the essence of what the PCRC resolution was going to do. I mean, I see that task force as a huge tentacled task force that in the time of COVID is going to have trouble getting together, meeting, and accomplishing, anything on a deadline. I mean, I want the same input from everybody that they do, and we all do, but I thought David channeled it a little bit more. That's why I was in support of this, that it kind of made a little bit of sense and focused things a little bit, in a time when city resources are stretched pretty thin. I've already tried to buy us some time as to get going on this, but I don't want it to drag out. We certainly, if we go ahead and do a task force in addition, it won't be a year, it'll be the first of the year, if not sooner. But I think this just distilled that a little bit more to something a little more functional. Let me get Vice Mayor Snavely, and I'll come back to Councilor Ellis.
Did you call on me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. You broke up on my computer. I'm trying to understand what Dave and Glenn have been talking about. I really want to understand it. So from the PCRRC asked for a task force to be created, and they specify the membership and the kind of people that should be involved in it, and that they should report back. Am I reading that wrong? I think that's what they said. So in the very long section 2, I don't see that. And so let me just tell you what I see. It says that we accept the spirit of their recommendation to involve the community. And the way we're going to do that is by appointing a comprehensive plan working group to develop a chapter focused on a safe, healthy, and equitable Oxford. So that's what it says. Is that, Glenn and Edna, is that what you think we should do? Just not have the task force, but have a comprehensive plan working group? Because that's what that says.
Let me get Councilor Ellerby.
No. Call the question.
All right. Question has been called. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll?
Ms. Ragu,
No.
Mr. Snavely,
No.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
No.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. The resolution is adopted 4-3. All right. We'll move on to our second resolution of the night. Ms. Eaton, you may read that whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a grant in the amount of $2 million through the Jobs Ohio Vibrant Community Program for the renovation of the vacant Elm Street building to create a tech hub in partnership with Miami University.
Motion to adopt. Motion, Mr. Prithurch.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Ellerby. I'll send this to Ms. Green.
Good evening. So this is the Jobs Ohio Vibrant Communities Grant, and we were one of 98 communities in Ohio invited to apply. There was a pre-vetting application when we had to turn in an outline of our idea to then be invited to fully apply. And we have been invited to fully apply together with Miami University for up to $2 million for the renovation of the Elm Street building to become the technology, entrepreneurship, creativity hub. And that will have two components. The Entrepreneurship Training Center in partnership with Miami University and the Butler County Small Business Development Corporation to help residents and students launch business ideas, so like an incubator. And the second would be the attraction of an anchor tenant to provide high quality jobs, and Miami's in active discussions with businesses for this space. This would only be a tiny piece of the funds needed for the renovation, but I believe it's worthwhile to pursue this grant.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council?
I do not see at this time. Thank you.
All right, council discussion. Let me give a little background on this. So if we're all familiar with the building over on Elm Street, that was the old Miami Food Service building. I was involved in some of these meetings to try to secure some funding, and I think Miami's still vastly in favor of moving forward with this as things go along. So this grant would just go in support of helping that, which would be a tech center, an entrepreneurial center that would feed into this local area, and they were very excited about that and the relationship with Miami. So any questions? I see Mr. Prithurch.
So first, I'm so excited, even in the midst of the teeth of a pandemic, we can move forward on something that could be transformative for Oxford to decades to come. Let's hope. Is there a local match on this grant or not? I didn't see that in there. And
so as I said, it's the total renovation budget's about 10.7 million, and the Jobs Ohio does not require a percentage match like a lot of grants, but they do want to know what your other funding sources are, and we're weak in that area. And you know, we have other pending grants out there with a couple things like in the region, and working with Miami to find more, but we're trying to show them that this is one piece of a puzzle, and that, you know, we'll keep building the momentum to try to get this funded. So there's not a designated match at this time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ellerby, and then Councilor Southern.
I'd like to thank council for the decision that they made regarding this property a couple of years ago. Sometimes saying no is a good thing. And
right.
That no resulted in shade makers, and now it's resulting in this technology hub. And those are going to create jobs and economic opportunity in the city. And I would like to appreciate you guys sticking to the guns of keeping the zoning the way it is, because now we are getting to harvest the fruits of those seeds that we planted years ago.
Councilor Southern.
Thank you, Councilor Ellerby. That's a very good point, and I'm also delighted. And I think that you know, helping to make Oxford economically viable in this dangerous time is really a very good thing. And I'm so glad that that the city staff has been working so hard to make this proposal possible. And of course, I think we should apply for this this money. This is a great collaboration with Miami University, and so I hope it moves forward and I hope it's successful. Thanks.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, Ms. Eaton, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. That resolution is adopted. Move on to our third resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 4-year agreement with Revise LLC for redesigning the city's website at a cost of $14,700 plus $3,900 for the annual hosting and maintenance fee, for a total cost not to exceed $18,600 for year 1 of the agreement and $3,900 each year thereafter.
Motion to adopt.
Yes, so moved.
Moved by Mr. Southard, second by Mr. Prithridge. I'm turning this over back to Jessica.
Hello. So we have been actively researching, trying to rebuild the city website. For me, I've been kind of looking at this for about a year, and then the past several months, a team of staff members have been looking very closely at trying to do this. And so we interviewed 5 different companies, really looking to make our website very resident focused, make sure it's accessible, that it's easy to use, and then would allow also some integrations that we don't currently have. So the ability to sign up for, news updates and council meeting updates and things like that. So we're pretty excited about Revise. We got bids from 5 companies. They were one of our favorites and also the most affordable. So that was a good combination. We did add to the contract a request for an escape clause if we're unhappy with their work, and also an annual review for ADA compliance and best practices for governmental websites. And they've agreed to add those 2 portions. And I'm excited about rebuilding our website if you approve it.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council?
There is. Janice, go ahead.
Okay, I'm here. Yes, I'm really glad you guys are doing this. I'm usually pretty website savvy, but I find the city one difficult in many ways. I hope that this new group is able, and I'm not criticizing anybody because pieces keep having to get added, but I hope that it becomes more consistent in how you find the minutes and the meetings and things like that with the different boards and commissions, an easier way to pay my bill. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to bring up a point of order that according to Robert's Rules of Order, calling the question requires a second and a 2/3 vote to end debate. It's not just an opportunity to be a patriarch and do a dick move and silence people. So I really think your last vote on that other resolution is invalid because you completely violated Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
She's right.
Well, let's address the resolution at hand.
Will we return to that? Are we not obligated?
Let Mr. Kennard, can you maybe speak to this? But can we, I don't know.
Well, okay. Go ahead, Bill.
All right. There are 2 ways to cut off debate. One can move the question, which requires a vote. One can call the question. If you call the question, if there is absolutely no objection, then you can move forward because it's assumed that's a unanimous vote. If anybody objects, then it requires a 2/3 vote. And so Janice is essentially right, and there is no opportunity for anybody to object. As it turns out, it was a predetermined thing, and Glenn knew that he had the 4 votes, and so he wanted to close off debate, and he won. And so I think that's water under the bridge now, unfortunately. But in the future, I think we need to be more careful about that.
Mr. Ellerby?
I need to address Mr. Snavely's comment. I did not look for counting votes on anything. I was over this debate. It was very clear who wanted to vote which way, and I don't like wasting time debating over something that everybody already has their mind made up on. So I called the question, called it, and there was no argument or objection to it, and therefore it moved in the vote. There was no violation of Robert's Rules of Order. However, if someone calls me a dick, so be it.
I'm going to take this one on me, everybody. That is my not knowing Robert's Rules of Order to the nth degree. And I don't think she's calling you, Glenn. I think that should go to me. I by no means meant to cut off discussion. I think we had great discussion on that. So I'd like to return to the resolution at hand, and we'll move forward. Thank you all.
Sorry, I'm just looking up actual Robert's rules, and it says to end a debate immediately, the question is called. I call the question and needs a second. A vote is held immediately. No further discussion is allowed. A 2/3 vote is required for passage. If it is passed, the motion on the floor is voted on immediately.
Thank you for that clarification. I will not make that mistake again. All right. Any further questions or discussion on the website resolution?
If I may, this is an investment in the future. Communications has been a high priority of council, a strategic priority, and nothing more important to that than a great website. And I'm sure that in looking at these websites, you're thinking about the interface with things like the comprehensive plan. And so I'm really excited. So thank you. I'm glad we're moving forward on this.
I am too, because it'll be nice to have some ADA compliance with the website. I don't know if we've ever gotten complaints, but it'll just be nice to be there. So, all right. No further questions. Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Ms. Southard.
Yes.
Mr. Bracken.
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby.
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge.
Yes.
Ms. Ragu.
Yes.
Mr. Snavely.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. That resolution is adopted. We'll move on to our fourth resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Seoul Medical Corporation for the purchase of 3 portable ventilators and associated accessories utilizing CARES Act funds at a cost not to exceed $42,000.
Motion to adopt. Mr. Bracken, second by Mr. Prithridge. I will go to Chief Dethridge.
Good evening. As Mary Ann said, this is looking for permission to go ahead and make the purchase on the 3 ventilators that we discussed during the COVID funding discussions. Hopefully we'll buy these things and put them on the ambulances and not use them, but just in case we need them, they'll be there.
Anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution?
There's not. Thank you.
All right. Council questions or discussion? I see Mr. Snavely and then Councilor Ragu.
Yeah, so Chief, can you help me understand the ventilator, how in an ambulance they would use a portable ventilator? Because my understanding was always that they tried a lot of other things first, and then it was a pretty serious operation to intubate people and put them on a ventilator. I didn't know, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means I don't know how you would do that in an ambulance to put somebody and go through the intubation process. I'm probably voting yes on this. I just want to understand it.
Okay. The main reason for buying these things is for COVID transport. Should we need to haul somebody from McCullough Hyde to a higher level of care? Those folks will already be intubated, which it's still a procedure that we can do, but they will already be intubated and we will be transporting them transporting them in that condition. And these vents aren't like the ones that you see in the hospital that they roll around. These things are probably a little bigger than a shoebox. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions? All right. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. That resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our 5th resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to waive parking meter fees on High Street, East Park Place, West Park Place, Poplar Street, Main Street, and Beach Street between Walnut and Church Street, and in the southern 2-hour section of Lot 52 from 9:00 a.m. on December 14th, 2020 until 6:00 p.m. on December 31st, 2020. The 2-hour restriction for meters in these areas shall remain in effect.
Move adoption.
Second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Prithridge. Just beat you, Edna. Turn that over to Chief Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual holiday meter, the fee waiver, where we make the meters free for parking to, obviously the occupancy and the demand are less, and we want people to come up and shop. I apologize for not catching this earlier, but one amendment may be needed, and that's about the southern section of Lot 52. Now with a kiosk there, there's no differentiation between 2 hours on one side of Lot 52 and 10 hours on the other. So I don't know if we can make that a friendly, somebody can make a friendly amendment to just say all of Lot 52 is included if this is indeed supported by you.
Right.
I would make that friendly amendment.
Thank you. I would also just add before you discuss, we did have at least one business owner who kind of objected to this. He's come to council before and talked about it, but really his objection is that if we're going to do this, he just wants us to enforce the 2-hour limit, which has been challenging at times, but we will make our best efforts to monitor cars and keep the turnover and just allow them not to, just allow them to park for free, but still issue citations for cars that park over the 2-hour limit. The meters will be bagged and that'll be noted on the meter.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council?
There is not this evening. Thank you.
All right. Any council questions or discussion? All right. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll on the resolution as amended?
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Happy holidays. That resolution is adopted. Okay, we'll move on to our 6th resolution of the evening. Ms. Eaton, you may read that whenever you're ready.
A resolution to urge Governor DeWine and the Ohio legislature to extend the deadline for operating public meetings electronically.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Southard, second by Vice Mayor Snavely. And we'll take this to the law director, Mr. Kennard.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Ironically, as about 15 minutes ago, I just got an email from one of the blogs that I'm a member of. Today, House Bill 789 was introduced as an emergency. The bill is intended to amend Section 12 of House Bill 197, which is the portion of House Bill 197 that the emergency resolution that allowed virtual meetings. If the legislature were to pass House Bill 789, virtual meetings would remain in effect until June 30th, 2021. The resolution currently before council was proposed last week by the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association in light of the fact that there had been a proposal to extend the virtual meetings permissive use into next year, and no action had been taken. So our legislators waiting again, legislature is waiting again till the 11th hour to give public entities any guidance on this. Certainly in various parts of the states, they've continued to meet in person, but most of my clients are interested in continuing the ability to have virtual meetings. And I think that most of the major cities are that way. And so many communities are passing this resolution just to urge action because we're getting into the 11th hour.
Yes. Anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before?
Can I just ask, when does the current resolution end? What's the current ending?
December 1st. So your next council meeting would need to be an in-person meeting.
Thank you.
I do not see anyone from the public who would like to speak.
Okay. Council questions or discussion? I think that was a good council review.
I'm in strong support of this. We need to make sure that we're all still around for all of this, and there's no way plexiglass is going to keep the aerosolized particles from going into each other's lungs. So I'm definitely in favor, and I think that I think Jessica brought this up earlier in the work session, or maybe Sam did, there's so much innovation with the technology that is empowering and engaging people in ways that we never would have imagined if we were just having an in-person meeting. So I hope that even whenever this pandemic is over, that we utilize all these things that we've learned to make sure people can be as involved as possible, attend our meetings, give their input, whether it's by email or by Zoom, whatever it is. I think that this has been a really bright, shining thing that's come out of COVID.
Councilor Bracken.
Yeah, I second all that. I think that's exactly what we need to do with it. I hope we're not forced to go in person because, it will be a danger to each other, but also any public people who want to come here unless we set up some sort of virtual thing where we can appear in person, but they can still interact virtually, which makes it harder on everyone, but might be our future to make sure everybody's involved and also, at least for the moment, involved and safe at the same time. So I'm in strong support of this, and hopefully he'll go this direction anyway, because I think he understands how serious things are.
Right. All right. There are no further comments Mr. Kennard?
I want to follow up on Councilor Bracken's comment. I don't believe that the governor is the issue. There have been some unusual efforts by the Republican, some members of the Republican side in the legislature. I'm pretty confident the governor will sign it once it's presented. And I do want to comment that what will be interesting moving forward is it's the participation piece by the public that I think that the councilors, this group, recognized the last time we had the discussion, which is in some ways the virtual meetings have led to more meaningful participation by the public. And the word participation has typically been defined until now as face-to-face. And all rules of council have been written that way with the expectation that everybody always has to be in person. So as this evolves, it's something we'll consider.
All right. No further questions or comments. Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Mr. Prithridge.
Yes.
Ms. Ragu.
Yes.
Mr. Snavely.
Yes.
Ms. Southard.
Yes.
Mr. Bracken.
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. That resolution is adopted. And we will move on to our 7th resolution. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into the sub-grant agreement between Butler County, Ohio, and the city of Oxford for reimbursement of eligible costs for administration of the Butler County Small Business Relief CARES Grant Program.
Motion to adopt.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Snavely, second.
Seconded.
Second by Councilor Southard. We'll turn this over to Mr. Elliott.
muted.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'll start over again so all of you can hear me. So the Butler County Commissioners have allocated $1.5 million in subgrants for local jurisdictions to help small businesses. City of Oxford has been notified of its allocation of $106,714. On the legislative agenda is a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a subgrant agreement, and we provided that to you in our packet, between Butler County, Ohio and the City of Oxford for reimbursement of eligible costs for the administration of the Butler County Small Business Relief CARES Grant Program. As this is a reimbursement program, the city will need to have an appropriation of the same amount to reimburse the local businesses for qualifying and eligible costs. And then we will submit documentation of those costs to the county and in return receive reimbursement. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. This is very good news for our small businesses here in Oxford, be able to provide this, because as we all know, when the students leave in Thanksgiving, it's going to be very difficult for them.
Let me check, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution?
There is. Mr. Knupp, go ahead.
Hi, I would just like to add that I know that it sounds like you guys are going to lean and vote for this, which I completely support. Because even as a high school student, I know how important our small businesses are, especially in a college town, because they offer such a great way for our students to make money and pay for their dorms and whatnot, and pay for their tuitions. And I think it's just so important that we make sure our small businesses have the funding they need to get through this very tough and tragic time, because those jobs can help fund more college students to go to Miami so that they can afford to go there and like afford a dorm. And same for high school students, especially some that live like in Oxford, because it would be quite a hassle to be a high school student and to have to drive all the way to Hamilton or wherever you need to get a job at if there are no like smaller businesses in Oxford. And because I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
That's all right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. There's no one else.
Okay. Council questions, discussion? I saw Mr. Snavely's hand.
Yeah, it's just a comment that I think putting a limit of 25 employees is pretty arbitrary. And we have some small businesses in this town that have more than 25 employees, but they're locally owned. It's a local business. It is not a chain. It is not, you know, a larger, it's not like Square D, Schneider Electric. So that bothers me. I just want to say that. And it bothered me about the previous one that we did when council didn't even talk about what was defined as a small business, but it ignored some of the people in town.
To clarify, it's full-time equivalents. It's not 25 employees. So I just want to make that distinction. So that could be like 50 part-time staff or 25 full-time staff, to kind of give you a sense. And that was set by the county, not by us.
Correct.
I understand that. I do. The previous one was set by us. This is set by them. I totally get that. I'm just expressing frustration because there are some people who have more than 25 full-time equivalent employees.
Any other questions, discussion? All right. Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Ms. Raghu?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. That resolution is adopted. We'll move on to ordinances. We have no first readings tonight. We'll go on to second readings. Ms. Eaton, you may read the first, second reading whenever you're ready.
An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Oxford, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Purthridge, second by Counselor Southard, and I will turn it over to Mr. Newland.
Yes, I really don't. There's a few things that I did change. I'll go over real quick. And I know there'd be more discussion on this, and the only changes I made since the last reading was decrease the appropriation to general fund for 31,200 for contractual service for Wi-Fi payments to match contractual payments adopted last meeting. Increase the transfer to the aquatic debt service fund from the general fund to $304,718 due to the fact that less was available to be transferred from the Aquatic Center Capital Improvement Fund in 2020. And then increase the appropriations in the Fire EMS Fund by $4,450 to include server infrastructure upgrades that was spread across various funds, and increase the appropriations to the Water Capital Equipment Fund and Wastewater Capital Equipment Fund to include server infrastructure upgrades, technology replacements, and the 2007 Honda electric vehicle if the city installs the planned chargers. And those were spread across various funds. I initially just included what was going to be spent out of each fund. I neglected to include all the things that got spread around. So I just made those improvements and decrease the appropriations to the Oaks Capital Improvement Fund to match Mike's estimate and spending that was presented in the CIP workshop. I had just carried over last year's spending, and it came in less than what was this year. So I just wanted to match what Mike Dreisbach presented in the CIP workshop, and that's it. Be glad to answer any questions.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
There is not this evening. Just someone popped up real quick, but there's no raised hands.
All right. Council questions or discussion? Mr. Purthridge.
So again, first, just thanks to staff for putting together a budget and trying to balance different priorities and move the city forward, including things like raises, new capital projects, and so forth. It's a staff-generated budgets that presented to council, and so the only time we really have opportunity to interject things is in first and second reading. I would like to make a motion that we add $100,000 to the budget for climate action and basically to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and or move towards renewable energy. I'm not proposing where exactly in the budget it goes, and this is where I think whether it's a capital project, and right now I would like to maintain a balanced budget rather than draw down the carry forward balance or whatever. But I think that was a priority that has been stated in multiple years of our retreats. I think it's a small down payment on our move towards neutrality. And so I would like to move that we discuss how best to do that. I don't have the specific project in mind, and the CARES Act funding kind of provided a model where I think we could commit on what we wanted to do, and then staff, I would love to see creative ideas on how most effectively $100,000 could be used to drive down emissions in city local government operations. So how that happens is I look forward to that conversation, but second reading, so it's now or never.
Second.
All right. All in favor of amending the budget to add $100,000 for...
You might want to allow for discussion.
Okay. Let's do that. Let's have council discussion. Sorry, I'm very tired tonight.
And I would also ask Doug for his ideas too. I gave him forewarning for some thinking on this.
Yes.
If I may, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask Jessica to present some information that we talked about. And so let me turn it over to Jessica. Thank you.
Is that okay, Mayor Smith, if I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with a small, brief slide deck to show you what kind of we were thinking after talking with Councilor Prithridge. So we wanted to first acknowledge that we have not organized our budget in a way where you can see how much is committed toward climate efforts. And yet we do believe that we do value climate efforts, and wanted to show you what we're already spending in 21 in direct climate budgeted amounts. So the food compost program continuance, the purchase of an electric vehicle, the urban forestry program, the new LED light improvements, and then the installation of electric charging stations for a total direct spend of $548,500 in next year's budget. Then we have some other like larger scale or broader scale things that impact the climate would be our continued work on the Amtrak station, the passenger rail, the Oxford Area Trail, the West Booster Station electrical efficiency improvements, the high efficiency motor improvements for the disc aeration system, the city procurement of green energy for city use, and then the electric aggregation program. And then also we feel that we really want to start exploring the solar farm concept, and that will take some staff time. And so we kind of put that at a little over 3.2 million in climate investment. But at the same time, we have acknowledged that the work of the Climate Action Task Force and the Environmental Commission and Miami Sustainability Commission are taking staff time. And so our option for a new spend in the budget that is not currently budgeted would be to look at a climate sustainability staff, a part-time position. And this position is based on a very similar position in the city of Hamilton. But this position at part-time, 20 hours a week, we believe is a good entry-level start to exploring what a climate staff person can do for our city. And you'd see there what a part-time salary would be with their fringe benefits. And then the other would be to kind of along the ideas of the comp plan would be to work with the Climate Action Task Force and or Environmental Commission to bring in an energy consultant and really look at what is feasible to start to decrease emissions. And so I don't have a cost on that. I wanted to get your sense first and we could explore that. So that's all I have this evening, but I wanted to share that as you then move on in your discussion.
And I might add, if I can, to Jessica's presentation that normally we don't budget a non-specific item, but that's entirely up to City Council. There's two parts to any spending. You've got the appropriation and then the authorization. If it's over $20,000, I need council's approval to sign a contract. So, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
We get Councilor Raghu.
I have three questions. Whenever we talk about the procurement of energy and also the aggregation program, I mean, those in essence are just talking about electricity and the RECs, right? So that money would, if it wasn't on that slide, it would be going towards electricity anyway, correct?
Well, we buy electricity, yes.
Correct, right. That's what I'm saying. It's acting like it's that much in addition when in reality, it's just about the purchase of electricity.
I think we need to acknowledge that we're one of the few communities that have an electric aggregation program and city purchasing, which purchases green energy. And, we just wanted to acknowledge that in our PowerPoint. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand. I just wanted to clarify. And then the other thing, I noticed that on, at the last environmental committee, we had voted on, unanimously voted in favor of putting a resolution forward to council for a no cost feasibility study for city owned land and buildings at no cost. So I'm just wondering where that is on this agenda because I don't see it and what happened and when that's going to be brought forward. And then how that would play in, especially since it's at no cost to the city.
Well, we've been pretty busy. I didn't receive anything from the Environmental Commission, but I did happen to read the minutes today and did see that.
So David did not provide it?
Not to me. But, I don't want to throw him under the bus. Please keep in mind, we got lots of projects going on and we're doing our very best not to drop any balls. So we can certainly put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. And I'm not accusing David. I know he's very diligent. So I'm just trying to make sure all the stories match up.
Mayor Smith, we do, I don't know when, but we do have one hand raised from the public.
Okay, let's take that public comment.
Mr. Knupp, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I would like to commend Ms. Green for her very amazing presentation about all of the greenhouse emissions, the green energy, because I feel that's very important for the future of, well, the whole world. It's important for everything, because I know that apparently for some reason it's hot debate that global warming isn't real when it's scientifically proven to be real. But I feel it's an important step for all of America, but Oxford specifically, to be as diligent as we possibly can in greenhouse gases, like the greenhouse gas emissions and green energy. Because that, if we don't keep that in check, that's like a make or break for future generations of Americans and Oxford citizens. And I support the Talawanda High School Environmental and Natural Sciences Club. So I would like to say I know a little bit about how important the environment is, because our main goal in that club is to clean up Oxford as a city, because we do lots of charity work for Oxford and Hamilton, to clean up and give back to our communities in ways that we can as high schoolers, that we believe are the most effective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Ragu?
And I might not be remembering the number correctly, but the food composting budget was 15,000, no?
No, I
Did
think
that go down?
I think it went up.
I have it at 11,000.
Yeah, I think we started at 9 and then we went up. So
I thought in previous years it was 15,000, but I don't have the old budget in front of me.
It's always been 11,000. The first year was a little bit less, but this is the third year of the program. The last 2 years, it's been $11,000. We spend about 900 a month.
Vice Mayor Snavely.
Just a real short thing. I appreciate all of the information that was presented, and I think that we recognize that the city has done a lot of good things and appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. And I think what this amendment is asking is that we set aside a fund so we have the opportunity to do some other projects. And I think it might be a solar project. It might be, well, we'll wait and see what staff comes forward with. But I think we need to have it in the budget in order for it to happen this year. If we don't expend it, we don't expend it. But we need a placeholder in the budget in order for it to happen if we wish to have it happen sometime in this next year.
All right, Mr. Perthich.
I guess I view this, another way to say would be an innovation fund or a challenge fund. I really look forward to hearing ideas, and Ms. Green's already shared some ideas of how we could increase our capacity. And I would be really happy to see increased staffing capacity that would enable us to chase after grants, for example. Does it take money to start developing the feasibility of utility scale solar? I don't know, but I think having that amount, and I think we could have conversation. If it's in the budget now, it'll be there. And if it's not, it won't be there. So I would look forward to conversations about, with that amount of money, how could we most drive down our emissions, either again through capital projects or maybe increasing our capacity, staffing, and maybe it's some combination of both. $100,000 is a lot of money for our budget, but I think it's a worthwhile down payment. Where best in the budget it goes and the choices of how it's offset I would defer to the professionals on that, and so, but I hope we can find room for it.
Councillor Southard.
Yeah, I of course, I hope that we can afford to do this and would like to see this happen. I would like to know about the electric vehicle charger station, because isn't the electric vehicle companies, aren't they going to participate and fund part of this? So wasn't that a matching thing, or even more, that they were paying for it? And the second thing is, if not, aren't we going to charge for this charging station just the way we do with parking meters? After all, people will be using electricity, and normally I think that when electric vehicles go places, people do pay to use the charger. So that could offset some of the cost of installation. So those are two, combined questions about the electric charging vehicle station, which of course I'm much in favor of. I think it's a very good thing to do, but I think that the cost could be offset by those two matters, and that money that would be saved could go into this climate change climate fund.
Well, let me just quickly address, we are looking to apply for grants for it. And then the two locations, lot 52, and I believe the parking garage. And of course, the parking garage, we charge a fee there, but we're certainly open to charging for it. But I just wanted to share that with you. Joe, you had something to share too.
No, that was exactly what I was going to point out. Thank you, Doug.
All right. Okay, so first we need to vote on the amendment to the budget of $100,000. So Ms. Eaton, if you will call the roll on the amendment.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right. So now we need to vote. May I see Mr. Newland's hand up?
Yeah, that being said, I would ask council if they could table both the appropriation ordinance and the transfer ordinance so I can make adjustments to them. I didn't know what was going to happen tonight, and we'll probably spread it across the general fund, water fund, and wastewater fund, $100,000. And I need to make adjustments since those are all operating funds. We'll make adjustments to both the appropriation and the transfers to the improvement funds of each of those. So I'm asking for just a little bit of time to do that. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I move to table.
Second.
Second by Mr. Prithridge. All right. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll on tabling the appropriations ordinance?
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right. We'll see that again in December. We'll move to the second ordinance. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance outlining budgeted transfers for the city of Oxford, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
I'll second it. And then I think Joe was suggesting that we table this one too. So
right.
I'd like to follow it immediately without objection with a motion to table.
Second.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Prithridge. All right, Ms. Eaton, if you will call the roll, we will vote on tabling this one as well.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. And that one is tabled until December as well. We'll move on to our third second reading.
Joe
Ms.
wants to speak.
Joe, Mr.
I just
Newman?
want to thank council for entertaining my request. Thank you.
I want to thank Joe for trying to find room in the budget for this. I'd hope that, I didn't know that we could all do this in one meeting, but thank you for finding a place for it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Eaton, you may read the third second reading whenever you're ready.
An ordinance outlining budgeted advances for the city of Oxford, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Prithridge, second.
Okay.
Second by Councilor Southard. And we'll send that to Mr. Newland.
Yes, there's no changes from the first reading on the advances. And I've already read them, so I'm not going to put you through that again.
Yes. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
There is not. Thank you.
Any council questions or discussion? Didn't think so. All right, Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. And that ordinance is adopted. We will go on to our fourth second reading. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance to adopt fees and charges for fiscal year 2021.
Move adoption.
Adoption by Mr. Snavely, second. Second by Councilor Southard. And we're back to Mr. Newland.
Again, there's no changes on this from the first reading. Thank you.
Anyone from the public wishing to address this ordinance before council?
There is not. Thank you.
All right. Any council questions or discussion? Oh, I see Mr. Prithrick's hand.
Yeah, I was only going to throw the monkey wrench in one thing this week, but I'm hoping in 2021 to come back to the conversation of the curb and gutter repair permit and the cost that we pass on to people for some of the patching, some of the things we dealt with. I would love for us to have a conversation about that, not at this late stage, but anyway, so I'm good with it for 2021, but I want to come back to it for the 2022 fee ordinance. So I'll remember. Thanks.
All right. There are no further questions or discussion. Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Mr. Prithridge,
Yes.
Ms. Ragu,
Yes.
Mr. Snavely,
Yes.
Ms. Southard,
Yes.
Mr. Bracken,
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes, that ordinance is adopted. We'll move on to our fifth second reading tonight. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3538, supplemental budget ordinance number 8, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2020.
Move adoption. Adoption, move adoption, Mr. Snavely, second. Second by Councilor Southard. And we're back to Mr. Newland.
Yes, there was a few adjustments I had to make, and so the first one from the budgeted transfers from South Point TIF District Fund due to carryover balance of $9,218.30 plus the current year interest income of $4,958.51. And again, I had to change this because the same day we had our meeting, we posted one more month of revenue. So I just wanted to clear all the revenue up so everything in the one fund will be able to zero out this year. And adjusted the interest income, the amount of money that's being transferred to the debt service fund, 151, and all the adjustments to the budgeted transfers from the TIF, from each TIF district, which was affected by those, the interest and the carryover balance. The second one, again, had an interest payment that was posted the same day we had our last meeting. So it increased the amount of small business fund loan interest to up to $491.47. And that in turn increased the amount we're transferring back to the general fund by the same amount of interest that was posted that month. And again, that adjusted the appropriation for the transfer from the small business loan fund to the general fund. And there's no, on the third issue, there's no extra, nothing done. It's just the $74,000, $160 that we're appropriating this year to provide resource or the family resource money for the cold shelter and transitional housing project for 1 year in the general fund. And finally, I had to add one more receipt to the CARES funding for the Butler County Small Business Loan Fund that you approved in the resolutions earlier. And that's an increase in revenue of $1,674 or $100,674 to the CARES receipts from the county. And again, increasing on the expense side, the same amount, $714 to the local coronavirus relief fund for the related expenditures. And that's it. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Anyone from the public wishing to address this ordinance before council?
There is not. Thank you.
All right. Council questions or discussion? All right. Not seeing any. So Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. The ordinance is adopted. We'll move on to our second reading. Ms. Eaton, you may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance establishing salaries and certain benefits for salaried and hourly, full-time and part-time employees within the service of the city of Oxford, Ohio, paid from January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Adoption. Move adoption by Mr. Snavely, second. Second by Councilor Southard, and we will send this to Assistant City Manager Green.
Good evening. I have no changes from the first reading. Thank you.
So anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance before council?
There's not. Thank you.
All right. Council questions or discussion? I see Mr. Prithrick's hand.
I guess I would just say I wish I worked for the city of Oxford because I think it's wonderful you're able to do cost of living increases for people. We on campus haven't been able to do that, and so I think it's careful budget management that you're going to be able to take care of employees in tough times. If I were a fiscal conservative, I might question it, but I'm happy that we can support the development of our staff and that we can afford it within a balanced budget. So it's good we can do that.
Well, we might not be able to do it next year. All right. If there are no further questions or discussion, Ms. Eaton, you may call the roll.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, that ordinance is adopted. We will move on to announcements and communications, and I'll send it to City Manager Elliott.
Thank you. I have nothing additional to report tonight. Thank you very much.
Let me go to, looks like anything from Mr. Dreisbach tonight?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. We'll go to Chief Jones.
Yeah, sorry to add to the comments, but I kind of just want to point out that I would be very cautious in the amount of weight that's being put into the Miami Student article. Having been someone who talks to reporters a lot of those things are taken out of context, especially Seth's comments. And the manner in which those reporters went about it was not very typical. Many of the things, obviously, 25 minutes of conversation with them ended up in a couple quotes in the newspaper that make us look very bad. So just be cautious in what you take from the media and then translate to what's really going on. So I also will say on the comments about the masks, the issues, people saying the police aren't doing it or the police don't want to enforce this. Keep in mind, from the beginning, we said the city manager's office was going to handle this. I have yet to receive direction that police should be doing it. So don't blame my officers for not enforcing something when I haven't told them to enforce anything. In fact, the specific direction was not to enforce that. We do foot patrols. We go out to these bars. I've watched a lot of body worn camera footage. And for the most part, inside those bars and restaurants, they're doing a good job. Not all of them. I think there's some that are doing an excellent job. I think Mac and Joe's has a great system. I think Brick Street, one of our largest bars, who I thought we would get complaints on, has actually come up with a really good reservation system. Others have business models that are more challenging, such as Skippers, where they have to stand up to make the order. So they kind of got to adjust their business model. And the complaints in which we got, and I got one tonight from Vice Mayor Snavely about CJ's. I mean, we got there and the alley was full of people, but CJ's wasn't yet open to them. And so we had to maneuver these people, and then we worked with CJ's to tell them they got to get a door staff person out here. And so I'm not sure. This is all new stuff. We're learning as well. I kind of mentioned this. Also, again, we have body-worn cameras. One of the persons quoted in that Miami Student article has a bone to pick with the police, okay? And I went and watched that body-worn camera footage and watched that encounter, and it tells a much different story. So just be cautious of that. Obviously, you've made it clear that you want the city manager to write some tickets. So I'll work with him and come up with a way, but there were a lot of things taken out of context with that. I'm going to work to find out if there's any other law enforcement agency in Ohio that's wrote a ticket for a mask, because these are health department codes, and yet we're asking police officers to go write them when there's health inspectors out there. I've not gotten any support from Butler County Health Department when I call them for these issues, so it's kind of all on us. With that, we're going to keep working on that. But again, it's the crowds outside that I see as causing a big problem. I think there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, I know what it was. So there's a lot of talk, and it's already out there on social media about the curfew that Governor DeWine has issued. So I don't know if any of you are confused about it, but it's pretty unclear on a lot of issues. Right after that, he had a conference call, or those offices had a conference call with police chiefs and sheriffs across the state and what we're to do. And so the expectations from that first of all, we have yet to see a written order. They're very vague. They were described to us as focus on educate and inform, don't write tickets. There's many different exceptions. So it's kind of similar. I think Oxford, as Doug said, is much further ahead when we've been dealing with these mass gatherings. So the direction that they give us privately is not always the same that you hear publicly. And I'm sure we're going to get calls about things that are not how we're to proceed. And they're perceived at the local level much differently than they are in the state. So basically, I'm just saying those issues can fall on me, but don't fault the police officers for any of that. And then on a totally different note, I just want to throw a shout out that the Oxford Lions Club, which I'm a member, will be starting their annual Christmas tree sale this Saturday when we unload the trucks in the Uptown Park. And so it'll start and it'll be open on the weekends and also through the week. And if you're not there when somebody's there, there's a drop box, but if you buy one of those trees, it really helps support the community and feeds back into our site-saving activities and a lot of the community service we do in the community. So if you're thinking about buying a real tree, I would suggest going there. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll go to Mr. Waddell tonight.
Good evening. Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit on what Chief Jones just said about the Lions Club. So in addition to those trees uptown, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start seeing a lot of other new items popping up uptown that we're working on as part of these the CARES funds. We're working with Ms. Green and Seth Kropenbaker to bring some motion activated globes and some snowflake lights and lighting up the sides of buildings and just different activities, different aspects that will make uptown even more vibrant than it already is. And so you'll start seeing those pop up, and it's a way to get people to be active uptown, support the businesses that are still running while students are gone, and even bring some visitors to Oxford is really kind of the idea there as well. But to do it in a way that's doesn't require crowds, it doesn't require people to be huddled around each other. It's just a way to get them to come to town and see what uptown Oxford looks like, because it's a different view during those 8 weeks while students will be gone. So yeah, and then just, supporting the Lions Club is fantastic. They do a lot for us at Parks and Rec and in the community. So, I support what Chief Jones is saying there. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Chief Deathridge, anything tonight?
No, sir. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to go to Assistant City Manager Green.
Good evening. Just want to extend a giant thank you to our service team who pick up all the leaves around town. They are working really hard on leaf collection. It takes them about 5 to 7 days to get through their entire route and get all those leaves picked up. So just thank you for their continued dedication there. I also just want to say thank you to Joe Newland for dealing with the CARES Act funding. It is a blessing and an extreme challenge. Takes a lot of work to make sure that we're doing it correctly, to make sure that we're not breaking any rules, and the burden really falls on him. So we have all these great big ideas and all these things we want to buy, and then he has to figure out how to make it work. So thank you, Joe, for your efforts on that. And then I want to just let you know that I continue to do the research on citywide public Wi-Fi. It's just, there's a lot more information I need to gather before I can give you any sort of good estimate and quote. So it's not that I've forgotten it. It's just, it's going to take a little bit more time. So those are my updates this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to thank council for your feedback and support on the community strategic plan update that Jessica and I are going to be putting together and giving you updates on here in the next coming months. Appreciate it. That's all.
All right, thank you. Ms. Eaton, anything you have to add?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. I'll go to Law Director Kennard. Anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go around. I'll start with Councilor Ragu.
I just want to thank all the people who are listening to the feedback and all the people who contribute their voices. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious who will accept feedback and kind of adjust their the way that they're going. And I know for Chief Jones, this is really hard. It's a hard spot for you to be in. And I do appreciate and recognize how much more willing you are to receive this feedback. And I think that is recognized across the board. So I really appreciate that. And also with the COVID testing, I want y'all to know, I mean, I got tested on Friday because I was sniffly and had a headache and felt really fatigued, and that the process itself is really easy. When I looked up different COVID testing, there were none available within, I mean, the closest one was a CVS in Indiana. So the fact that I was able to go to urgent care 20 minutes in and out, having this test done is really pretty impressive. So the whole process, I just want to commend McCullough Hyde and urgent care and everything that went forward to making sure that our population is as safe as possible.
Councilor Ellerby.
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Snavely.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Chief Jones for his comments. You know, I don't know that how they're going to be able to give a citation to every person who doesn't have a mask on. But I do think that the attention needs to be placed to the places of business that are not abiding by the rules. And so I think it was Glenn suggested that there be some record made of the number of times that they're cited. And so I think that's a good way to go. You know, it's so frustrating when you go by and you see those massive crowds every day. The chief mentioned CJ's. They're doing private parties. So you can only have 10 people at a party at your house, but you can have a boatload of people and just have them all go to CJ's. And so it's an interesting issue. And I don't know how that many people that I see in the alleyway can be socially distant inside CJ's. I don't want to pick on them, but the chief brought them up. But there are other businesses uptown as well. And I appreciate that the reporters may not have reported as accurately as that. God knows I have been the recipient of that. So I do appreciate that. The photos that they showed, I think, are pretty revealing of the kind of issues that are being faced. And so I hope, if nothing else, we can at least focus on that. Thank you.
Councilor Southern.
One thing that was not mentioned in our discussion tonight was the role of Miami University and the in enforcement of any sort or in their role in all this. I mean, the article in the Student did talk about suspensions and so on. Anyway, we didn't talk about that in part because it's something we can only talk about what we are involved in and what we can control. We can't control things on a national level or on a state level in many ways. We can just control our own actions and our work on city council. And everybody on council and everybody on staff is working very, very hard. And I just want to say thanks to all of you. It is Thanksgiving soon, and I hope that everybody has a good and a safe Thanksgiving. Many of us will not be seeing anybody, any family, or any not our usual crowds, and you know that's just the way it is. We still have much to be grateful for, especially our health, and we also need to be aware that many people cannot celebrate because they are sick or they have died. So let us be aware of that. On Thursday, on a different note, this coming Thursday is the ribbon cutting for the new headquarters of SELF. That's the supports for encouraging low-income families. And they're doing such great work through COVID. And I'm proud and happy to be on the board and to be involved in their work, which is doing great things in our county in terms of helping people with, in many ways, with job training, with homes, with rental assistance, and all kinds of ways that this organization helps the people in our county, including in Oxford. So that's going to be the new headquarters are at 415 Monument Avenue, which is just to the south of the Fitness Center, and it's this coming Thursday at 3:45. And I guess it's going to be virtual, but I don't know. But anyway, I just want to mention that they have moved into their headquarters. They're doing a great job, and they are serving so many people. So we all have much to be thankful for, and I wish everybody a peaceful and safe Thanksgiving in isolation.
Councilor Bracken.
Yes, I wanted to agree with JJ that I thought this actually would have been best handled in terms of mass gatherings by our Board of Health. But obviously that's not happening. And I also think that, as mentioned, having somebody devoted specifically to that rather than putting officers on it is a better idea. Outside of that, I wanted to suggest that everyone, if they're going home, if they're seeing family for the holidays or family is coming to them, that they get tested right before they meet with family. I think that would help prevent spread and, keep your loved ones safe. That's all.
Councilor Prithridge.
So I just wanted to, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I was born on Thanksgiving, and it to me is I like the gratitude, and I just want to express gratitude for the opportunity to be part of this council and to work such talented staffers to tackle really tough things. I was thinking a little bit today that I think that because of the nature of this, that we're all passionate about the things that we believe in, and we're tackling things that are not easy, we're going to have impassioned debate. I hope that in that we can always try to trust in each other's motives. There were times today where, there were questions of each other's motives, and I think that we're all trying to do our best to navigate our way forward. Robert's Rules of Orders can help us with that. If we can hew to Robert's rules, that will help us. But partly is we have a really good group of people, and we trust each other, and then we can talk about the merits of our different views and not, what's in each other's hearts. But again, I believe this is a wonderful group, and I think we've all earned some rest, and then we'll be back in December to tackle more. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. All right, I have a few quick thank yous tonight. I wanted to thank Casey Woodell and Parks and Rec for doing a very successful virtual Veterans Day celebration. I think we had a few veterans come out, and I don't know who all viewed it online, but it was very well done. I would also like to congratulate the Finance Department for receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. So we all know Joe keeps it down to the penny, and this award shows it. One more, the Auxiliary of the McCullough Hyde Memorial Hospital Tri-Health has honored our police and fire departments on their Memory and Honor Tree program. This award honors a person, or I guess now an organization, for their steadfast commitment to the Oxford community and the hospital. And I think, especially now during this pandemic, they have done that, so well deserved. I too will chime in. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, however you choose to celebrate. I know this year is not going to be how any of us want to celebrate. So with that, if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn. I see.
So moved.
Movement to Prithik, Mr. Snavely. Ms. Eaton, will you call the roll so we may adjourn?
Ms. Southard?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mr. Prithridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone.